Right, very excited about this. You come extremely highly recommended.
Well, no pressure. Who do you know who's been?
Who? Do you know? I mean, lots of people. Lots of people. I just, yeah. You guys
I'll
are
start having a run through everything.
Building a good thing here.
We're trying it. 20 years in Feb. It's just gone.
Yeah.
Rapid. So what is it you do? I noticed an interesting email address.
What's the
Sea Venture? Yeah.
Well, that's a sort of new thing. I've spent a life in events, so I've ran festivals for many years. So Boardmasters down in Cornwall, have you ever heard of that? It was my business for many years.
Okay.
And then this is more sort of having a rethink and a bit more investment stuff and
yeah. And where's your home club?
So I play at Roehampton, Sunningdale, Road, Sunningdale, and St Enodoc when I'm down there.
I grew up playing Roehampton.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's a good little track.
It wasn't when I was. No, it was always a great. As a junior, it was a great course to grow up at because you could get to greens in two. Yeah. So you weren't just hitting driver forward away, and there were small greens. So I'm convinced that that's a major reason why my mid-long irons are some of the best bit of my game. Yeah. Because as a junior, you were playing greens
them a lot. Yeah.
And actually, considering where it is, I mean, it was a great crash for my parents because they'd dropped my brother and I off with tennis rackets,
so where did you
racket. I grew up in Putney.
Yeah. That's right in Barnes,
And they'd literally just see you at 6, don't kill one another.
Yeah.
Which you can't do now. You can't leave your children.
No doubt you did there. Do you know what's amazing? And it's like, and actually now it's a sort of having that balance because it's just on my doorstep and you can practice there. And they're putting in this ridiculous sort of Trackman centre.
I remember, this is probably going back at least 3 or 4 years. I remember seeing some base plans.
Yes, I remember they're putting it in this winter and then a proper short game zone.
And is that going to be on the back of the practice
the little
ground,
range that's rubbish. Yeah, they're putting it in there, and then there's a little chipping green, and the greens are superb there. And it's just like a micro kind of Augusta. It's so manicured. It's manicured to death, basically.
Well, it changed because it went to that. I left in 2005.
Yeah.
So it was after that it got really good.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I would have been there, overlapped for a bit.
Yeah.
And then I just got into the holy ground of Sunningdale membership. So.
Have you played from a young age?
Yeah, I played all my life. So grew up playing St Enodoc down in Cornwall, and then sort of played a lot as a kid, and then stopped for a bit. Yeah. And then sort of took it back up, and now lucky enough to play a lot. Yeah. So life basically exactly that. Kids and most of it.
And naturally right-handed?
Yeah, naturally right-handed. Yeah. And now playing a lot, still on a sort of quest that I probably need to retire from at some point and just kind of get calmer, but still trying to kind of squeeze the numbers down a bit.
Any other sports you do a lot of in particular?
I play a bit of hockey of late.
Okay.
Which kind of messes with my swing a bit.
You say that in golf, aren't
you? Yeah. It's not great big companions, are they?
I'm trying to think whether it's better now or not better now. I think the tendency to get the hockey players, because of that, and keeping it flat, tends to be that sort of shaft handle getting forward and a bit of either a low flight or a bit of a block.
That's my miss, yeah.
Well, you can blame it on something.
Yeah, exactly. Understand where it comes from. So, it's a bit, it's a general stuff. I mean, I like all this kind of surfing and skiing type things, so that's really where my heart's at. Surf, skiing, golf. And
anything from a swing point of view, anything in particular that you're working on, or you go back to as a key thought? Or?
Yes. So I guess the big things are. For me, I need to compress it a bit more, to get a bit more shaft lean. So I'm going to hit quite a high ball. Yeah. Probably, as you'll see, a little bit spinny.
Okay.
Misses that sort of blocked right.
Yeah. And
I've spent my whole life hitting it with a draw, and then weirdly have sort of almost lost that at the moment.
Okay.
But the sort of how you just sort of you gradually migrate into patterns. Yeah. The wayward kind of cut was quite damaging, so I'm sort of working it back towards the draw, basically.
And do you generally start fairly online and drift off, or has it been more of a push fade?
If I had a tendency, it's a slight pull draw.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll start online or just left of line, and then go a bit further left. So I normally miss things on the left.
Okay.
Unless I then block it, basically. And then so these are quite new, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, so I had those fitted, and then just hadn't sort of got as far as the rest of the bag, and they're all a bit out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a setup point of view, there's quite a noticeable difference at the very top end. I mean,
yeah, there is, isn't there, going to rescue into irons.
Well, the TaylorMade setups are, the shafts are very stable in the irons KBS tours. They're a 120 gram, and steel goes from 75 to 135, so they're in the stronger end on weight. But balance-wise, they're very, very neutral through. Yeah. Whereas the Kylie series, the white in the woods, are all a little bit more towards the tip end.
Yeah.
Add to that, the TaylorMade head's naturally a little bit heavier than most.
Okay.
Your driver is an absolute sledgehammer.
Yeah.
At D8 nearly.
At the what, sorry, there?
At swing weight wise, up at around D8, which is really, really strong as a swing weight. So very, partly 45.5 inches. It's not massively long for off the rack, but it's like average on tours 45 to 44 and 3/4.
Is it? Yeah.
But that will swing really pretty bottom end heavy.
Yeah.
And the fairwood's almost D5, hybrid D3. These are D0.5 to D1 at the moment. So in terms of proportionate balance, the top end is very much in the club head end.
Yeah.
And these are very, very even through.
Okay.
So your timing's got to be quite different between the woods and the irons to produce the same result.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's why I'm here.
So if the woods work well, in the main.
Well, do you know what?
Then these will be quite light in the head. But if they're,
I would say I've been a good driver all my life, and for some reason, my game's gone a bit the other way, and it's almost a sort of weaker part of my game.
Okay, so that's something we can have at the very least have a quick check over. But that's quite an exaggerated balance.
Is it? Yeah. Interesting. I just had them by the TaylorMade guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the local one, Roehampton. So yeah. I just did their thing when it came around.
Yeah, and the thing is, it depends what. The question for me would be whether that was, if you've tested one, is that spec what you tested? Probably not. Because that's quite strong, even by TaylorMade standards. I wouldn't expect them to be quite that head heavy.
Really? Okay, that's really interesting.
So it's very much kind of lead ball at the end of a piece of string kind of setup. The head's likely to get a bit detached. Your first miss is likely to be right with it.
Yeah, it is.
So
that's what
if you're on the first or
Roehampton,
it's out by the ninth.
Yeah.
Functionally quite tip heavy.
Yeah, and I do have a tendency to sort of, I mean, I guess I just have all the standard faults basically, but sort of throwing my right hip a bit, and maybe with that weight it exaggerates it a bit.
And depending on how you move, having some weight there can be a good and a bad thing. So it's about getting enough weight for you to use to develop your speed and hit against, but then not so much that you've got to force it. Yeah. And there is a very much a happy medium in there. But that's something that we can find out. So, irons-wise, very consistent through at the moment. Really stable balance and things, and certainly really soft feel. Not a huge amount of forgiveness. The SCs and the 7.
So it swaps at the 9.
Okay. So it's the MMC. SC.
You getting to play a lot still?
I played a bit more this year actually.
Where'd you play?
St George's Hill.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Although golf gave me a lesson in humility yesterday.
Did it?
Reminded me of the previous rounds. I shouldn't think as normal. Had a good few rounds and then an absolute rotter yesterday.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Just put me straight back into my box.
Just mental, basically, isn't it? I mean, it's.
That one, no, I would say yesterday was quite physical.
Was it?
Just a really ropey day from a swing point of view.
Yeah.
I was just off.
Yeah.
But
but do you think that gets triggered by where your head's at, or you think it is?
You're going to physically wake up in better place one day to the next slightly, or as you play certain, like for me, old faults like swaying creep back in.
Yeah.
And that's just then a case of going back and doing the practice. And
but they're so hard to iron out in round, aren't they?
Yeah.
But what's amazing is the night sleep, you wake up next day and you don't do it.
Yeah, but no, it was a good fun day with the wind.
Yeah, it was windy, wasn't it? Yeah. Lovely course.
Starting to get, I was playing a different course yesterday and starting to now get proper flyers out of the rough. which of course just hasn't happened in the summer. So
yeah,
that was challenging.
Yeah.
How often do you get to play now?
Sort of once a week, pretty much, I'd say. I practice quite a bit around. I mean, I'm somebody who likes practicing, so I can sit and chip balls for hours, and it's a total switch off for me. So I sort of, I'll go to the Roehampton 2 or 3 times a week and muck about, and then try and play once a week if I can.
And you, with that short game stuff, will you go up? They've still got the sort of short kind of 120 odd yard hole to the right of 18. It's
like, no, they haven't got that one. Sorry, it's the right of 18. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. It's like a 80 yarder now. There's 2, so they've divided it into 2. So,
right.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's a good little zone, and then with the other bit, it'll be great.
And so, generally, from an iron play point of view, I guess sort of is there a particular element that you kind of feel you maybe want to augment performance-wise, or aren't getting the most out of, or is it really a case of saying I like these, but what's now doable?
Basically that. I'm trying to think what generation these are. And I did have them fitted back in the day, but what, 8, 9 years old are they?
Yeah, I think they're around that.
Yeah. I'd done the other bits of my bag, whether I'd done them well or not, that's questionable now. But it was just going through an update. And the things that I think I've potentially got a bit wrong is I've obviously dropped my 3-iron.
Yep.
And I felt like the gap into my rescue is quite big.
Okay.
So I wanted to close that. And I think the things I would do different if I was re-choosing this set is I think the 52 into the 46 is possibly a bit too big a gap.
Yeah, and that's where his iron sets have got not necessarily they're a little bit of a, I guess, relative to when they came out, they're pretty slightly stronger loft than they would have been originally. But where 6-iron lofts have got from this is basically 29.
Yeah.
They've gone down to 26, 27 on a lot of sets. The pitch wedge is 44, and then you've got a yawning gap.
Yeah.
So that's certainly an area where
more like a 50
gapping has become more of a challenge. Yeah, doing 50 degrees more regularly now as the first one back from pitch wedge.
It's because I almost had a sort of 15, almost just over 15-yard gap there.
I mean, that's not too bad. I would say, you're probably more like 20 with the 6 degree.
Yeah.
It
always
the
feels
gap's
a bit
going
of
to spread a little bit down the bottom.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure I need the 56 and 60 necessarily, so I probably would have balanced that out. That was my thing. And then the only other thing is I probably would have just kept I would have done the blade up to a 7. Right. I just love these irons so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going through those, just noticed a typo. There's nothing particularly.
Have they moved a lot?
They will move a little bit over time.
Yeah.
These ones, I would say, maybe a degree here and there, up to a degree here and there. So actually, lofts most likely would have been 29 on the 6-iron, 25, 22. That makes sense. Then 33, so that's a bit weaker. 37, 41, probably then 46, thereabouts. So there's a little bit of
knocking them in.
So there's not. They're relatively soft metal. So there aren't huge. They haven't moved a lot.
Yeah.
But they will just give, especially if you do practice a reasonable bit. Then.
Yeah.
And they.
So I have an old club I go to the range with, an old Mizuno.
Got it. Yeah.
So just always
they for how long you've had them for, and the nature of the metal and softness of them, they've moved a little bit, but not a lot, and it's still pretty consistent. So, right. But essentially, it's more a case of, certainly within the bag, the bit that stands out is the difference between woods and irons in terms of the base setup. There's very much two different parts of the bag in terms of how they swing.
Yeah.
The irons within themselves are really pretty consistent.
Yeah.
It's just whether that can be improved or not, but they're really kind of they track pretty well through.
Yeah. And
the 56 and 60 are a little bit heavier, but we'd expect that out of the Vokies. But the rest of them, there's nothing stand out with the irons. They're a very neutral, what we call almost an inoffensive setup there.
Yeah.
It's a strongish weight of shaft, neutral balance point, a little bit of kick out the tip.
Yeah.
But a very, very neutral weight profile.
It was interesting what you said about driver, because everything about me sort of I don't know. I'm not very good at trying to fix my problems with a club. I kind of think I've got to deal with that in my golf, and then as well as my approach. But so
yeah, but there are things that it's purely the physics of how you and the club move. So yeah, it's about the old prep school cricket bat was SS Jumbo, and no one could use it because it's just back there somewhere. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just not going to come with you. You can't play a flashing cover drive with it. So there comes a tipping point where it's a bit like wearing a pair of shoes the wrong size. Yeah. Doesn't matter how many pairs of socks you wear. Yeah. Your foot's going to slide around in there. So, which makes me worry about the drivers. And so where that is, it's highly likely to be a bit over the tipping point on weight. Yeah. Interesting. So what we'll do is grab any club, have a loosen up. I've got the 6-axle, capture a bit of data with that one. So
is that what you do?
Suitably limber. And we'll use the yellow balls here just to warm up with. Okay. What ball do you play?
Pro V, normally.
And is that a 8?
I've taken a 9. I was going to hit a couple, then a 7.
That's no problem at all. I said anything less than that would go off the front mat, but these ones are fine.
I'll just warm up a bit.
Yes, Endoc's a lovely course. It's a long time since I was down there.
Yeah, it's a real gem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great fun. Always just down there with Trevose and Endok, and when we're going down and doing St Melian in one of the amateur tournaments. Just some great golf down there. Yeah.
It's funny though, because that's it. Those 3, isn't it? And then
there are a couple of others, but I don't know whether they're the kind of ones I know of, but wouldn't know what the course was like. Yeah. Because was there one at Lou?
You know what? It's one of those things that I sort of struggle to even get my time on St Endok. So when I'm down there, I just sort of I'm trying to get my 2 or 3 a year on there. So I never end up going anywhere. Oh, there we go, that's the...
And would you say generally would you tend to see yourself more as a tempo player or someone? So I've always been more comfortable playing a full shot and kind of almost going down a club and hitting it versus going up a club and swinging within myself. Yeah. So I'd say I'm more of a hitter than a tempo player. Yeah. Is it more kind of natural to be a bit more positive with it, or more natural to sort of play?
What, to play like a half shot?
Or kind of maybe not quite a half, but a kind of 70%,
80%. Yeah, they're probably a bit dangerous for me. Okay. To sort of feel like you're coming off it.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
So I tend to I normally sort of go down my shaft and then try and hit a full shot. Got it. If I'm trying to get in between the gaps. Okay. Well, I'm showing you my faults at least.
Yeah, I can definitely see where, once we get the data, run through it more, but I can definitely see where that bit of a left-hand side comes in. Yeah. Tend to take much to it, or tend to pick it a little bit?
Pick it a bit. Yeah. And I'm trying to hit down into it a bit more. Okay. Yeah. So my tendency is to get quite a neutral path. Yep. A little bit closed face. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then a bit too shallow. Okay. So I'm trying to work and sort of getting I think I can sway off it a bit. Okay.
Is that more? Yeah. Is it more getting my weight on top of it a bit more rather than necessarily hitting down on it, or just getting in front of it a bit more?
Yeah. It's more my body position, I think. Yeah, I'll stay behind it a bit, and then, then you're sort of trying to do all those sort of faults. Should I hit a couple of 7s?
Oh, absolutely, anything you'd like to loosen up with. It's still a very busy course, Roehampton.
It was that difficult.
I always remember it being a very busy course.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Post-COVID, it's crazy. I mean, if you want to get a Friday tee, you've got to be like within 3 minutes of the opening the whole day. The whole day gone.
It was bad enough 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There's always that thing of looking down the 9th to see if you could run out to the 10th tee and jump on there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of...
And then get out there and find there are 3 other people waiting to do the same thing.
A lot of zigzagging goes on.
What are you playing off at the moment?
I think that was 4 point something, 0.1, but I think realistically, because it's funny the scoring thing, and I had a couple of low rounds. I think realistically, I'm sort of, I think 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would like to get down to 4, a real 4.
Where do you feel you're losing those extra couple of shots at the moment?
I think I lose it off the tee, because my irons are normally fairly solid. My short game's quite good. Could probably hone my putting a bit, but the bad rounds I've lost a couple of tee shots and then racked up.
Because the thing now versus 20 years ago is those trees have grown up quite a bit.
Yeah, well, Roehampton, yeah.
If you're really wild, you're on another fairway, but
yeah, I mean you just got
to be a bit easier to get back to the green.
Yeah, you got to be. It's okay in the winter,
so
you can go through them.
And generally, if there's a par 3 on a good number for the 7, what would you play that for, distance-wise?
I feel it's a 160.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Give you a switch or grab those, put the Pro Vs down, and then.
How much is it different? I mean, obviously, it's like you're saying, you wake up one day and you got one swing, another. How do you manage that with the fitting?
Because the swing's never as different as you feel. You're still using the same muscle groups. Your musculature is still working the same way. It's just the sequencing's better one day to the next.
But you can sort of see
if
through
you're
that.
having to compensate, your compensations are better one day to the next.
Yeah.
So you're going to get some days where everything's flowing and you're freeing up a little bit more, and others where you're having to feel for it a little bit.
Yeah.
But actually, functionally, because really what we're looking at is not. Obviously, there are certain technique elements that everyone's got. You're either someone who pulls on the handle or a more body turn.
Yeah.
And the club will suit one or other depending on where the weight is. So it's really levers rather than anything else. So in terms of if you're having a really good day, then it's important not to necessarily fit you for that swing and maybe be slightly conservative with it.
Yeah.
If you're not having such a good day, well, we can actually challenge you a little bit.
Yeah.
And fit for the better swings. So it's kind of looking at where you feel balance. Your swing is on the day versus normal. But generally we can see how easily something flows as to whether it's naturally just moving better or not.
And what about if you're trying to change your swing?
Well, for you don't need to change it very much because the swing's pretty orthodox. But if someone's going through a major change, then that was where...
with mine, with body position?
That won't change things very much. There might be elements of the clubs that can help with that, actually.
Yeah.
But if someone's going through a major swing change, then we'd often, if they've only kind of let that one slip when they get here, then we'd go through the fit and look at, right, depending on what you're going to work on, could that change any of the recommendations? And if that's the case, we'll take a base point and then just say, look, come back and do a review once that change has been made.
And a bit more preemptive.
But where your swing is, and particularly the iron side of it, which we're looking at today, it might be a small change in loft. But you're naturally going to be someone who's a higher spin or a lower spin player.
What do the sort of averages look like for you there on a 7?
I'm pretty neutral. I mean, so angle attack, yes, is for that last shot there. 3 degrees down on a 7-iron is, it's not like you're kind of zero and picking it, but it's you'd probably be looking at an orthodox 4 to 5. So it's marginally shallow, but it's not like an.
That's
not
even
like a real
probably I'd definitely get shallow on that as well.
But based on that, your launch angle with those balls, you would probably see them launch a little bit lower with the Pro V1, but it's been pretty neutral. So there's nothing. Certainly, it's all pretty orthodox.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing. There are no alarm bells ringing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So would you play 6-iron on 14? Off the back.
Got me complete blank there. 14.
If I remember rightly, it's about 170.
Yeah.
I always remember
it's probably 7-iron more.
I always remember as a Julian trying to get an 8-iron there and failing every
Yeah. No, I definitely wouldn't get an 8 on there.
Stupidity of you. How little club can I get there?
Yeah. It's probably more 7-iron, I think.
Okay,
yeah. I would think normally. It's a fun little corner though.
Yeah.
Skinny.
Would that be the most likely miss, just a little clean, strike-wise, rather than heavy?
Yeah, it would, and I normally get away with them.
Yeah.
Because they're normally quite neutral.
Yeah, it's
paths.
commercial. Like a 9.9's the perfect club of thin.
Yeah.
That goes the same distance as a normal one.
Yeah. It can be a tiny bit long, but other than that, it's normally okay.
Swing.
That was a slightly better one.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice.
See, that I felt I got over it a bit more.
Okay. Let's do the one more, be great.
So was that one more?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
So,
okay, so they're not wildly off, but there's definitely part of that strike that tends you to get a little bit clean, tends you to pull a little bit. That's where there's not quite enough in the bottom end to hit against. It doesn't, as you start down, what I'm looking for from the club is if the total weight's right, as you fire from the top, the club's going to come with you.
Yeah.
So it kind of naturally, as you turn, it just stays in sync with your body rotation.
Yeah.
With these ones where it's not counterbalance, but the balance is a little more up apart.
Yeah.
What happens is you basically overpower that bottom end a bit, and there's a little bit, it's not a cast,
whip,
but the club doesn't pull you down to the bottom of the ball and get you to the turf.
Yeah.
So that tendency to thin it can be just almost to the bottom end, getting through the shot a little bit too soon.
Yeah.
And that's also where that left comes from. So for you, when you're swinging best, you're going to hit a little bit of a fade. Because the path gets a little bit out to in, and then you manage the face.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a guarded full shot.
Yes.
I'm not going to go as far as saying a steer,
Yeah.
but you've got to be very careful of that club face to not send one off that one.
And I definitely have a bit of a tendency to steer it. Yeah.
So part of that is your path's a little bit, let's take the warm-up swings out, is a little bit out to in, not enough to be even remotely a concern.
Yeah.
But it's consistent.
In, so a little draw.
Yeah, so on the horizontal measures, the path minus is left, plus is right.
Yeah.
And obviously on the vertical, the angle of attack minus down, plus up. So yeah, it's nice and consistent. There's a half a degree tolerance either side on say production. It would be good if I just waved at something and the cursor would follow. So very, very marginal tolerance on angle of attack, which is great, and path very repeating, which for your playing standard, you'd hope it would be repeating.
Yeah, it's fairly consistent misses or whatever.
Where it kind of shows that there's a little bit of a loss of sensation of the club head is in here. So face to path number, you go from dead square on that last one to best part of 3 degrees open.
Yeah.
So, but what's happened is you've hit a few, they've dialed in, and then just then overpowered it a little bit. But also that one, that smash number, that's the ball speed to club speed efficiency.
Yeah.
That, for someone whose action is that repeating, you're just not getting the club head into the ball as timing-wise as strongly as we would want.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not through you doing weird things with the swing. Yeah. Because you're actually repeating the move really
so
pretty.
It feels like
pretty
it's coming out a bit weak.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is spot on for where I'd want it to be.
Okay, got you. And what's good? I mean, so this is all quite consistent because it will tend to be the variance is always my face.
Yeah, exactly.
Not my
the delivery pattern's
stable.
really stable.
Yeah.
But what happens is when when it doesn't kind of drop into plane, you're then having to fish for the ball that impacts a little bit.
Yeah, so you're wristy.
It ends up, your hands can overpower the club face and kind of flick it around rather than the weight taking you through the shot. And once we get that, then you'll start to get into the guts of the ball a little bit more. I'd say angle of attack, you don't need to worry about angle of attack, but if you're guarding the club face a bit, then it can tend to work loft under rather than covering it and staying over the top of it. So you might find, even if we don't do anything with loft, that if we get the balance right, that allows you to carry on going with it and stay on top of it and just cover it a little bit more and bring that flight down a fraction.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I'd love to get.
Not to get between a 17-degree launch and a 20-degree launch from representative strikes.
Yeah.
So that's where it's just that little bit, it's just a bit more spread than I'd want, or that you should be getting for your consistency of delivery.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not the flex of the shaft. A lot of people talk about flex. It's not something we focus on too much because it doesn't have much of a bearing and feel.
So you're talking more about club heads here, right?
This is more about shaft.
This is more shaft,
or kind of dead weight and then weight weight distribution, because that's the bit that governs whether you and the club head are in sync at impact, not how it bends or where it bends or how much it bends. So in principle, the base flex of the shaft is appropriate based on your swing strength. There's plenty of speed, 88, 89, 90 miles an hour. There's a lot of speed there.
Is that very normal? I mean, bear in mind, virtually 50.
It's on the stronger side.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So if you just take, if you take kind of verticals low handicappers, sort of scratchish players, then kind of high 80s, 90s, probably not a million miles off average, but across all ages. If you're taking kind of golfers in general, you'd be more like 80 to 85 as
because that's not a bad number.
So it's nice and strong. And it's not you throwing yourself out to get it there as well. No. So there's natural speed there.
So this is the thing, that's where I think I just lose a bit of, somewhere I don't feel like exactly what you're saying, so I just don't feel I get that.
No, there's definitely a drop on efficiency. So, it's that where you lose a little bit of strike, that's going to drop ball speed back. So if you take 80, okay, there's a couple of miles an hour difference there. So for ball speed, it's 2 or 3, 3 or 4, then probably 6 or 7 yards for that. So, but even if you get proportionate club speed there, put 6 or 7 yards on, that's still 170 versus 179, and that then is just that launch and spin and strike quality variance, which we should be able to really dial in. So
it's quite a spur,
looking at that sort of dispersion side of it, that's the bit that's hurting you from actually an input that's really not bad. But you're going from, okay, that's the thin. If we're being, it's not an over sugarcoat, but take that, you're still going from a slightly quieter swing at 163 to a really well hit one at 179. That's club and a half. Which is massive.
It is massive, isn't it? Yeah.
Without you doing too much different. So, because you say your tolerances on delivery, half a degree on angle of attack, half a degree on path. Even the face to path's not that variable, but a tolerance of kind of total tolerance of 12 yards on carry, which is quite a lot. So what I'm going to do first,
and you can solve all that.
I could do quite a lot of it. Yeah, I'd like to think so. So I'm going to keep a very similar head style to start with. I don't want to use the head to kind of overly influence performance. And I'll keep the loft the same. Just really I want to look at the changes in weight and balance point to get that timing as synced up as possible.
Cool.
And take it all from there.
Okay.
Any questions? Just stop me.
No, none at all.
Completely the wrong place. That's why I couldn't find it.
I mean, how much has this changed since when you started?
Oh, massive. Yeah.
Were you just doing this manually?
Well, there were still the measurements on spin and path things are. They're measuring spin indoors now, whereas when we started, it was just a good guess. But that happened pretty early on, getting measured spin. But it's really the ability to interchange, to isolate one element and say, right, this is doing that, and that is, rather than going, well, we know that shaft works, we know that head works, but we haven't tested them side by side. You can't be certain, whereas now we can be certain that a head will change, certain parameter performance, shaft will help you to strike it a little bit cleaner because we can isolate one element. So that's been a huge end.
Are you weighting that?
Just slightly, yeah. So because with some of these we err slightly lighter, so we can build the weight up.
So that you can control it.
Yeah. I'll start there. I'll just make sure loft and lie are the same. So do you play much over the winter, or do you?
Yeah. Do you know, almost more in a way. Just because the sort of summer months get so busy, and then I'm lucky enough to get, probably a good 4 weeks out of London, and then so then I'm away from regular games. But winter feels like a sort of a weekly games. It's part of the sanity process.
I assume family plays, so is that where you got into it originally, with family playing?
Yes, and I played my dad originally, and then I was lucky enough to have a good, as a sort of amateur player, I just got a lot of mates of a similar level that all play a lot and have the time to.
So we've not changed total weight a huge amount, but changed where the weight is. So it's very slightly less heavy in the shaft, but
feels like
more weight down the bottom.
Hit away?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
It's a nice looking club.
Yeah. Thought you'd like the look of that.
Yeah.
Classic Mizuno blade. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's see one more. Okay, so one of the things that's definitely better, just from a consistency point of view, is having a bit of weight in the bottom half of the shaft. As you transition, is dropping the club down, so you can then kind of pull against it. So each of those, from a dispersion point of view, is a little bit tighter.
Wow.
One, by having more on the bottom end, we lose that one. So it allows you just to keep going with the swing, and the club almost resists a little bit more. It creates that lag and that late hit.
Yeah, and that's a sort of errant length, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it means you get a little bit of extra length, but it's just a sort of
bit. Yeah, I mean, there's still a little bit more to come out of both of those from an efficiency point of view. So that smashes ball speed divided by club speed, and actually that flight's a little bit on the higher side. So we could bring that flight down slightly, which would. I'm not trying to kind of force yardage for you, because you've got in the tank plenty of distance, but to get representative flight.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit high and weak at the moment. So you're losing about certainly half a club. Where we're looking for near a 1.4 on that.
But you would put that down to club rather than technique?
I mean, there's a little bit of add lofted impact. So to get that sort of launch angle from a downward angle of attack.
So I'm getting a bit in here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, so you just want to get more.
But again, angle attack's still very stable. It's in exactly the same place. If we look at those, if I compress those down, we're still exactly the same angle of attack. Path is a little bit less out to in because it's dropping in a little bit more. But the tolerances of, it's a couple of shots, but the tolerance is very, very tight. Just a little bit more launch off of that. So, but the key thing, immediately we've hit down the line.
Just felt instantly stable.
That's a good start.
Right,
Take that a little further. So I want to go a little bit too fast so we know where the bottom out is and bring that back up.
Yeah.
But that sometimes it should be a case of is having that bit more natural sensation for the bottom end of the club, where you do have a little bit of a pull on the handle. Otherwise, that wouldn't work. Should help you to feel where the club face is, and therefore going to get a sensation for getting maybe a little more covered.
It's a lovely feeling when the whole lot's synced, isn't it? My bad day, it doesn't. I feel like I've yanked it here.
And if there's not enough weight in the club head, once it goes above your hands, it sort of goes. There's nothing there to respond to. Whereas if there's a bit of mass on the end that takes you back and forth, it actually helps keep the club on track a little bit.
Position,
and the club takes you through the shot a bit more as well.
Is the shaft a bigger variable than the head?
On dispersion, yes.
Yeah.
Because the
swing's
going to do whatever it's going to do in terms of general patterns of path and face to path.
Yeah.
But you can get it much more wrong because the actual variances in weight, shaft-wise, you can go to 45 grams or 140 grams.
Yeah.
In a head, you're normally only changing by a few grams.
Yeah.
So actually, the physics of how the club head gets to the ball is dictated much more by the shaft than the head.
Yeah.
They can both mess it up pretty well.
But, if wrong,
So you've got finer adjustments to make with the club head side of it, but you can make a bigger difference with the shaft. The shaft's really to nick a phrase from someone else, it's a timing mechanism. It's the bit that allows you to time the strike, and then so the swing and the club head are generally about forgiveness or the club head, but the high-low nature of the flight.
Yeah.
When you're getting more to a little bit of the does it help to mitigate a shot shape?
Yeah.
But it's mitigating it rather than changing it.
Yeah.
But it's more about the kind of the launch and spin, the forgiveness, and then how you deliver dictates, like at a driver, how much I've got an 8-degree driver and other people have got 14-degree drivers because of how you deliver
to the ball,
how much loft you deliver to the ball. But yeah, the head dictates that bit rather than the shaft is the consistency.
Yeah,
of the shot.
And what you're seeing with me is it's a dispersion game. Yeah.
Okay, so going a little bit lighter there, what I could see is as you got in transition, it got a little bit, just got a little bit kind of that way on you.
Yeah,
so you had to go back and steer it a little bit.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. The previous one felt very bizarrely stable.
Yeah, it's interesting one that sometimes, I think that's, it's about 6 grams lighter than your current shafts. And anything that the first one that's better is normally feels really good, and then sometimes you go back to it, it's awful afterwards if something else improves it. But the body will take path of least resistance. The less you've got to do through the ball, it starts to let you free it up and freewheel and not have to manage anything through the ball. You're just collecting it. And that's when everything looks really simple.
Yeah.
And then so going to that one, there's a bit less to get feedback of it. It doesn't drop you in as much.
Yeah.
So you've then got to put the club on the back of the ball again rather than just collect it.
Yeah. What head's that?
This one's the Mizuno the 221.
Yeah.
So just a pure blade, just because that's not giving you major influence on the shot.
Yeah.
Which is and also relevant to what you're playing.
Yeah. So you get quite a clean. Yeah.
So if we find out that you can't find the face with it, then we've got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But also, I don't want to. I want to kind of see what the shaft change on its own does.
Yes.
Once we get the best timing, we can then see. Right, what do we need the head to do, and you can make a kind of a balance decision.
So for me, you'd do shaft then head, and that would be completely variable for a different fitting, would it? You sometimes just start.
I generally always do it that way around.
Do you?
Because you don't know what head you need if someone's delivery pattern's off.
Yeah.
So you might fit for a certain head style based on a flight, and once you've changed shaft, you can get a completely different pattern.
Yeah.
So until you've got as clean a delivery as someone can make, you don't really know. You don't really know what head's going to, because you might fit for a much more forgiving head when actually get the shaft right and it dials in the strike.
Yeah. Because they've sharpened up the top, haven't they?
Yeah, this is a very clean top line.
It looks so nice.
So again, it's a nice, forgiving head.
It's a bit of a cut. Feel that.
Yeah, that's now got later. So just pushed it the other side. That's back up more towards 120. It's now just starting to get behind your hip.
Yeah.
And then the handle goes up.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the first one.
Yeah, it's intriguing, isn't it? Because I could go into space. That's just me swinging it, but it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's straight away where the distances are. So the pattern's the same, very similar shot type, but the quality of contact and timing diminished.
Yeah, and I really felt it. Yeah.
So let's see whether this was because it swung really well, or was just better than what you had to start with.
You've got your job, but then you need a couple of shafts up there.
Yeah, and straight away ball speed's back up.
That feels really nice.
That one's got a bit more fade in it because, so face to target's very square. Path got a little bit more out to in, but the ball speed straight away kicked back up.
Out to in, yeah.
See one more with that, Gary, but I think I'm going to swap the shaft out.
Should I try and hit it with a bit more into out? Was that not
Even
helpful?
if I say no, you probably will anyway because you're thinking about it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's a. So back to that, the contact. So that's really neutral. The contact every single time is that much better. It's interesting to see. I can look at strike point on this. Yeah, so it's interesting looking at strike point. So this is with your existing club. it's marginally heel side, but it's pretty consistent. And onto that one, it's still, there's the odd one that goes into the heel side. It's slightly higher up the face.
Yeah. But is that a weaker position?
No, exactly where there are a couple that were a bit thin with that, so that's going to pull it down the face with your existing one, so it's going to pull it down the face a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to see it on the cross?
Close to. I think we're looking for a nice sort of tight marker, and the moment, any time you get that sort of red part, I'm just going to have a little look through these and see. There was one that was just outside the strike point, and then that slightly heel side. Yeah, a couple. So what you're likely to find, so that last one was right out, and you could hear that was different, is that where the earlier ones are actually a little bit on the inside of the face, where there's a bit more weight in the bottom half, there's every chance it could just extend you a little bit more. So that's something that that's not variable enough for me to worry about where that striking point is, because the consistency of shot is that you'll find strike, you'll adapt a little bit based on contact point.
So I'll work that out in time.
It's something that'll migrate margin, and most players your one's natural miss is either a little toe or a little heel, and yours, we can see through all those, is going to be just a couple of those are fairly central, but then the dispersion went off. It's central to slightly into the heel, but that's a consistent pattern through. So even going into, I've cleared those off. I wonder if I go into those as well, we should see, it's not a one on there, just warm-up shots. It's still into the heel side anyway. So that's something that's a consistent pattern through. That's not something I'm worried about trying to change, because that'll dial itself in.
There's probably a little range exercise, isn't it? Just put some of that.
But the bit that's quite telling with that club is there's one that's a little bit right, but the rest are really tightly dispersed from a carry distance point of view. So, and going back to that, immediately we saw that consistency of delivery and timing and contact click straight back in. So it's a little bit weak on flight. I'd want to bring that flight down a little bit. But that certainly from a grouping point of view, straight away, that's massively different than any of the others. Really, really different. So,
brilliant. Okay.
I think it's there. I'm going to get one other slight variance. Just to, this is more sort of dotting I's and crossing T's.
Okay.
Just to make absolutely sure.
Do these sort of early signs make you worry about my driver fitting?
Yeah.
Do they? Yeah.
Not necessarily the shaft.
Yeah.
Shaft sits in a very similar balance point to this, but it is definitely too heavy.
Too heavy, interesting.
But that's 45.5 is where, so when probably a couple of years back, when Will Zalatoris at Torrey Pines went an inch longer with his driver to get more distance, that was the length he went to.
So
now, bear in mind, he's one of the best ball strikers in the world.
Yeah, I had no idea they were fitting me a long driver.
But that's standard length for retail, because on a robot it goes quicker and goes further. Right. So that's one of the things, is that they're set up to maximise yardage. However, the problem is it makes them volatile. So at that length,
I want.
At that length, if you factor in that balance and that length, there's a lot of drop of that club head. And then that makes the face, basically it changes plane, opens the face up, and then you've got to recover that. So if a relatively small proportion of the, so again, Justin Thomas has just gone to that length, just to try and eke out more yardage, but if not that many of the world's best players play that length, because it's harder to control. Why is the retail industry allowing your average 18 handicapper to go out and try and use one?
And the worry is that you sort of get the odd nice number on the track, man. And
if you catapult the head through and square it up, you can knuckle off a load of spin, and you might see an absolute unicorn of a shot that goes absolutely miles.
Because you do, I get one every now and then that just goes like a rocket. And suddenly I can hit,
but it's
close to 300 yards.
But as you say, the problem, from your speed, close to 300 with a bit of run the face, should be doable. But the problem is what you don't want the one and then there and then there and then there, because
that kills me.
You can't score. So yes, the pros go on, hit it as far as possible, then chop it out, and then try and score. But actually, for anyone else, in play makes a hell of a difference. We're not playing 7,000-yard courses. And, you know, Sunningdale or Hampton. Sunningdale's not short, but it's not massively long.
No, definitely.
And there's heather. So
and I can get everywhere in too anyway. So I just need to be on the.
But in play, or at least with a reliable miss, rather than, you know, the more you've got to do with the club head to recover it, the more variable your shot pattern's going to be. So
that's really interesting.
But it could, and well, it certainly should be as simple as shorten it down, and then get that head weight, get it more of a neutral length, get that balance more in sync with what we're looking at with the irons. And because actually, when I
quite often go down the shaft on it, and I love the feel of it when I do. It just feels all a bit more sort of in control.
Makes a lot of sense. See one more, but
so it felt that in my wrist slightly. That was better the first one. I sort of almost felt like I felt up here.
Good contact. I'll watch one more.
Now that's your potential. That's the one that sort of keeps you coming back, right? I mean, that one there, you carried that 171, 182 total.
Contact's good.
That felt nice, yeah.
It's whether it's as consistent. What would be interesting to see is to play then, just play a little knockdown shot. Just a little sort of 3/4, just take a little bit off. Or if there's a go-to shot on course that you like to play. So I always like to play a little kind of a lower punchy shot. If I'm between clubs. If there's a shot that you like to kind of go to as an in-between shot, then just play one or two of those, and then we'll switch over the shafts, because it's the feely ones that are going to be the ones that
I don't
really
particularly have a knockdown. Let me go.
Or if it's a fade or a draw, if there are certain certain sort of shots you go to. Close. Okay, a little bit there. Okay.
I'm going to probably just hold off the swing, the follow through more.
Okay. Not bad. Okay, let me put the other one back in. I mean, it should be close between these two.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of grams between the two shafts.
And you obviously go straight into one brand there. You just know that that's instantly.
Well, the first one I went to is mainly because I wanted to change the balance point than the current ones. Go a little lighter and give a bit more feel for the tip end, and so there's a very natural one to go to for a good baseline.
So the brands will do that rather than having sort of one of each of all of them, and they're all comparable, like a range of heads. They'll have more like they have sort of nuances, do they?
Yeah, generally, yeah. So KBS tend to be more mid to higher balance for steel, but then they do the C-tape, which is tip balance to hell and back. Whereas I guess certain models will have certain characteristics, and it's just which of those characteristics you're trying to change, and then I'll just go to whichever one of those
suit. Yeah.
So do just a stock swing to start with, and then we'll do a couple of feely ones as well. Little more right. Okay.
A little bit cussy. Try and hit a bit more of a draw. Oh,
okay, interesting.
That the toe, I think.
Okay, interesting.
So I was trying to hit that one a bit more into out.
That's okay. It did shift the path. It's quite interesting having seen that last one. Just play the same kind of slightly kind of different shot, a couple of different swings you've made with the other shaft as well. Okay, let me put the other one back in.
I felt like it may have been a bit more me, that one, but
Because each of those, each time, other than with this other shaft that we went back to that, it was better, and that one not sure was better. So
I don't know if that little sequence is a little lax in concentration.
Okay, there we go.
Just normal?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we had a couple more kind of stock swings with this, just to see where that falls into. Okay, came off that one a little bit.
Yeah, didn't get through that at all.
Though. Yeah, again, this one's slightly better. Slightly.
I got through that one.
It's a little bit of a, because interesting, both of the strongest contacts have been with this shaft. So those are getting a little bit more efficiency out of.
Yeah, that was the best swing, I think, feeling-wise.
When we went back to that, and whichever one I'd started with from these would have been an improvement.
Yeah.
So the Modus, actually both by Nippon. The Modus is just a little bit more tip balanced.
Yeah.
And actually going to that one just smoothed it out a little bit more, just time-wise. And then going back to it looks a little clumsier.
Yeah.
So, and that's
So
where
it has been quite consistent,
you swung
isn't it?
that one, that didn't look as good because that moved a bit better. And
Yeah.
it's one of those, once you get used to not having to do so much with it, the moment you go to a club where you've got to compensate a bit more, it starts to busy things up again and complicate it again.
Yeah,
Whereas
yourself,
those ones are both, get slight draw there, but that's just laser down the middle. But the quality of contact, that efficiency number.
What's interesting, also
it's just a little bit. We had one at 136 with the Modus with the other one, but that's a bit of a standout. And actually, those last few were much worse, having hit that one, which has maintained a little bit more.
Yeah.
The first one was a bit clean, but very, very square.
Yeah.
So we take those bar one where the face is more open there. 0.8, 0.8, 0.6, 0.4. The face to path is much, much squarer. And then there were a couple of the fadey ones, I think, there. But otherwise, in the main, 1 or 2 degrees on path. Those are the feely ones.
Yeah. So I'm chopping them. Yeah.
So just got a little bit more out to win on those, but the face control is very good.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting, isn't it? That's what you end up actually doing.
Don't really. And the part of the problem is we are good at adapting to things.
Yeah.
So I'm a sugar coat take. I'll take. Is there any funky ones on each of these?
Yeah, I still think one of my weaknesses being that I'm sort of okay. It's probably a hockey thing. I'm kind of quite good at with my hands, which means actually it allows kind of bad habits to creep in.
I mean, it's still fine. It's both a blessing and a curse. Actually, what's quite interesting is those first few were notably the best ones from a consistency point of view. Those first three, then there's one a little bit to the right. But then when we went back to it, there's kind of one square, then we're short right, then we're short left. The other one is interesting. It's slightly more, and the orange are your current ones. I wonder. What I may do, I might change some heads. I might just do a go, because that's still quite compelling. But the quality of strike out of that last one was a hair better.
Yeah.
So I might stick with that shaft, also look at a couple of different heads, and just see whether that tightens up a touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. That's still, watching those last batch of swings with this, I would say that was a hair better.
I don't feel I swung that one very well. Is it worth having another?
The previous batch, the last few.
The previous batch to that one. Is it worth doing that again or not?
We'll definitely do another comparison. I think it's a tight call between them. Although looking at that diagram, you'd have to say, well, so those first few swings of that looked so connected, but then it seemed to get worse as we went on. Now that could be that slight variance in sort of timing, or just sort of just a few swings that have gone off, or it's actually that if this starts to, we'll hit a few more of this and we'll see what the heads do, and then we'll kind of do a cross-reference. If that dials in and that stays dialed out, then I think we know. Yeah. But if that starts to dissipate, it's a marginal call, but the first few of those were that repeating that maybe that's something to. It's hard to look past.
Yeah.
But I'll get a couple of heads. I just want to bring the flight down a little bit from a launch angle point of view. So it's one and where you've got the split set currently, where you've got the MMC. The MMC never did that much. It was a slightly lighter material in the centre, so it perimeter weighted a little bit.
Was that the middle one?
Which is your 4 and 5 iron.
Yeah.
But what that doesn't do is add any ball speed. And so that's potentially where we can bridge up a little bit better at the top end.
Amazing.
Because we can put a 4 or a 5 iron maybe that have a bit of face progression that help keep ball speed gains to bridge up. So like the 4 iron at the moment, if you miss it a bit, it's going to drop right back.
Yeah.
Probably where you nuke it to should be where the average should be.
Yeah.
So that we can certainly help with a bit of tech up that end in principle.
Okay.
But would that sort of split be something that you'd be looking to have and say keep a more of a traditional blade style 6 down? Because your ball striking is good enough, so I'm not going to try and talk you out of it.
No, do you know, I just love the blades.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have, my regret with this, and I've improved a lot. So when I bought these, I was probably a 12. Possibly not quite right. When I bought, and I just didn't want to go into the blade, so I switched to 8. And if I was choosing it now, I probably would have kept the blade to a 7.
Right.
And I use my 7 and 9 around the green a lot. And there's something particularly lovely about the kind of look of a blade.
So would you see 7 iron as your longest short iron in terms of attack club?
Probably. Yeah. And I sort of, whenever I'm at range, I just hit my 7 the whole time.
Yeah.
So, you know, as my sort of benchmark for, well, you know, not like I'm attacking greens with my 7 iron particularly, but
But
I think
it's
I'm
one that you're not
it.
looking at wanting forgiveness from.
No.
No.
Okay. And can shape it reasonably.
Let's see. And actually, it's where, from a head style point of view, where we're looking to bring the launch angle down a bit, but not bring spin down. That's actually where a blade head helps, because the higher centre of gravity keeps a bit of spin on.
Yeah, okay.
And we can just turn the loft down a bit without it cannoning spin off.
Yeah.
So,
would you do that by bending it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So this one is going to a head that should bring flight down, but it's whether it affects the spin or not. So this one's the Strix on the Z forged.
Okay.
It's almost like the old T-Zoid.
Yeah, I used to have those.
Kind of muscle bar.
Yeah, that was my first one actually. Was it the True?
Oh yeah, I had a set of those.
I used to have those. Yeah.
It's a little bit soft. Just going to drop that steel back in there, Gary. Take that one out.
Definitely got a fade these days.
Yeah, and that's a bit where potentially some of that is with what you have to do with these to not go left.
Yeah.
It's possibly a little bit of a hold on for the ball rather than a free up through. So it's a much safer move for you to move a little left and manage the face than to start to move right and then flick it.
Yeah.
So
which is really destructive.
A bit more guts in the bottom half of the club definitely allows you to move the path more right.
Yeah.
And without flipping through the ball.
I would like that. Yeah.
Watch one where I might switch that shaft over here. Okay, so that's one where, let me put the other shaft, I'm just going to put the other shaft back in. It's interesting on seeing how that, sometimes when you change the head you get a slightly fresh swing again.
Yeah.
So the first few are always
what you re-energise.
Yeah. Or because something's changed, you're kind of going out to see what happens. So it's just a freed up move. It's like the first batch is just, okay, well, this is different, and you're just swinging.
Yeah.
And it can be that if you keep the same combination of head and shaft too long, if nothing changes, then the brain starts to take over a little bit. And actually I'm looking for those freed up moves. So that, with going back to that shaft, just looks a bit more variable on strike. So just weight this up a fraction. So this wouldn't be done with lead tape. Well, it can be done with lead tape if you like. Yeah. I actually had someone ask if it could be done with lead tape the other day, which surprised me. Yeah. Most players don't want to see lead tape anywhere near, but it would be done. So that's why everything's built next door. So these sort of tolerances that we're able to build to, because all the swing weight scales are calibrated every morning, and there's 2 guys in there building the sets rather than sending out. So you actually add the weight. Yes, everything's done on site here. So we'll get the components. How do you add it? You can do it a couple of ways. You can either glue a mass in the bottom of the hosel. Yeah. When you glue the shaft in, or how we do it, which is a bit more accurate, is you glue the shaft in. So you're not having to guess how much glue you're using. Yeah. And then some tungsten powder is sort of hammered down, secured down, and sealed in the bottom. Yeah, so you can then do it to 0.1 of a swing weight point. Amazing. But that's why we build everything next door, because we can control that element because we're only building
So you would order all the raw materials
sets a day. Yeah. Yeah. Rather than hundreds of sets a day. So it just doesn't work for the mass environment. So their tolerances for the amount of clubs they're building are pretty good. Yeah. But relative to what it allows us to do here, it's quite wide.
Yeah, amazing.
But it also means we can take full responsibility for the performance. If there's anything that you're not sure you want to check over, then it's up to us.
You know how to process.
And we know how it's been done as well.
I think I've got in a particular position that one.
I'll watch one more before I switch head. I'm not sure this one's getting into the ball quite as well.
Got over that one a bit more.
Okay, that's a little bit of a stronger launch. The good thing with this head, it can bring spin down a bit more relative to other heads, but it hasn't dropped it too much. It's just dropped the launch angle down to the 18s there, which is good.
Yeah. So I mean, I consciously tried to change my swing on that one.
And what was the feel you used on that? Was it getting a little more rotation?
Yeah, so to try and sort of slide back before I kind of pivot. Okay. Yeah, so to push my weight forward earlier is the sort of thing I try and work on.
Yeah, and that one then we're starting to get with that efficiency you got with the strike, the flight. That's now much more representative, 182, 183, much more representative to the speed you've got, to where we should be looking at from a 6-iron carry. So your 7-iron should be more like 168, 170.
Yeah, which would be so good, yeah.
And that's just, rather than making it into a 6-iron flight, that's just a representative distance for that club.
Yeah.
With your club speed.
Hit another one?
Yeah, one would be great, thank you. Okay. Come back, I'll see. The only thing I'm not sure that the good one's very good. The only thing I'm not certain is whether that's quite as consistent as the faces.
It feels a little bit more tinny, that one, to me.
Yeah,
the Mizunos are so buttery.
The different sounds,
they do. And I felt it a bit more zingy in my hand.
Yeah, they do have a different note off them. So Mizuno have got the copper layer on them, which dulls the sound down and makes them feel softer. Yeah. And that's, they've definitely gone for that. In particular, this model, they've gone for that very soft. The old "nothing feels like a Mizuno" tagline. Yeah. That was something they really wanted to augment this model. What clubs did you play growing up? You mentioned the T-Zoid Trues.
Before that was pre-Mizuno days. But then I sort of got into the Mizuno thing, and I've had them. So I had those then. Which one other one? MP57s, was it?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then into these. Yeah, so I had the Trues sort of early on. I do think I just jumped right into the blade there, and I really shouldn't have had it. It would have been a fitting nightmare.
Well, I think there are two sides to it. One is you've got to enjoy playing, and actually some of that enjoyment is looking in the bag and going, I like those. So you've got to look forward to using them. Yeah. And then actually, there's a bit. I still play blades through my 5-iron.
Do you?
And yes, a miss hit comes up a little bit shorter, but if you can level off that with just a miss hit, and not go, oh my God, that's really hard to hit, then actually it's only a few yards shorter than a slightly more forgiving head would be, and a miss hit's still short. Yeah. But I think where I'm playing not as seriously now. I really like the process of getting that feel and feedback of the strike of the ball. So
that's sort of why it's a bit like going to the net rather than the range. Is it just often find when I go to the net rather than the range, I actually go out and play better.
Okay.
Because it just forces you to only think about the feel.
And I think that some of that, I guess what you might kind of call sort of success on course is if you're a bit more process oriented and that right, I've hit the ball well. Like I'd much rather come off the course having hit the ball well and scored okay than dog it round and make a score, because I've still played badly.
Yes.
I just happen to have got it round.
I'm still annoyed myself.
So, So that's probably where the blades for you give you that, right, yes, that's kind of success, failure kind of bit of strike. You get that absolute feedback out of it.
Yeah. It's also like that sort of thing of, sometimes you just have to get in yourself in a sort of, not professional mindset, but, adopt the right patterns, get your head process right, feel, excited about the club. And whenever I look at big cavities, important. I just look at it and go, I just don't want to hit that.
The big you've got to, and you can, sometimes it can kind of focus in, you can get the strike dialed in. Some players will dial the strike in with blades and others will just hit it all over the face.
Sort of give up on them,
and just not feel like they can get the most out of it. I think it's,
I'm definitely
those are the unmeasurable bits, but having come from blade-like clubs for a number of years, unless we really needed to move you away from them, it almost goes without saying that you're just going to enjoy using those clubs. And
and whenever you see them in someone's bag, you like gravitate towards, we're going to have a look at them. And,
like a magpie.
I'm one of those. Shiny, I'm a shiny magpie. Exactly.
Part of it is you've got to enjoy what you're using. We're playing for fun at the end of the day. That just sounded a better contact.
Yeah, that felt nice.
Okay, interesting. A little bit more shot shape. Like strike was great. A little more shot shape on that because path got a bit more out to in.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't say finding strike with that better than you did with the Strixon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that feels so much nicer. That was a bad one.
Good side with that though is the one that with the lighter bottom end, that's shaping left. That's just a slight pull.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good thing to see that, because it means it's either the kind of current swing where your path's working a bit out to in is producing just a little bit of a drift left to right.
Yeah.
But the one about very double cross is not a pull draw.
Yeah.
It's just a pull. So it's taken out the left going left,
which is a huge
element.
Because the double two-way miss is a nightmare, isn't it? Okay, and that was a bit
not quite
bit quick, wasn't it?
Okay, there's just one other one I swap on before. That I would still be looking at this or the Mizuno head.
Yeah,
I think, but that's also the CG's a little higher up the back of the head as well, so possibly slightly more solid feeling because it's not a, they're not trying to spread weight low down.
Yeah,
it's just a very, very traditional.
Yeah, classic
blade head. Yeah,
it's interesting. As my one sort of worry coming is that I thought I'm going to get talked out of blades. Whereas in my mind I was thinking like I want to add more blade in. So they're really, lots of people do play with them because you're sort of always amazed how many pros don't.
Well, I think more and more of them aren't, but partly because there's an element where they are going to look for the smallest percentage improvement that they can, and if they're playing a 7,000 yard course, well, if they can not lose. I mean, you still see the best players are still playing. Best ball strikers are still using blades.
Yeah.
Because it mitigates you're not getting any extra distance out of them.
Yeah.
They might punish you a little more on a miss hit, but long is worse than short in most.
Yeah, almost the flyers.
So you get rid of the prospect of any club-induced long miss.
Yeah. Which should be quite dangerous.
And the flyer at the rough, where it doesn't matter what you've got, it's going to jump anyway.
Yeah.
But you can find reasons to move. But say we're playing for fun as well, and actually, if it's something that I could hit it further with a cavity backer with a, say, something like a T150, Titleist, I could hit it further than my Nero blades. But
but you want to turn up on that.
But I'm not playing. I'm playing 6,500 yard courses.
Exactly. That's where I'm at. And also, you just want to.
And I'm not trying to earn 3 million a week playing.
Yeah.
So those sort of very marginal gains.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly less.
Yeah.
So less important, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there aren't many of them using major kind of what might be termed game improvement clubs. There are some, maybe kind of the top end of sets where they're using like for a 4-iron or a 3-iron, going to more like a, take the Titleist range, for example, the T350 or 200, they'll certainly use those.
Yeah.
But
they're all quite kind of bladey, albeit not as.
Those ones are much more hollowed out.
Are they? Yeah.
But they're doing it because at that end of the bag, they're hitting those into par fives an awful lot.
Yeah.
They want to send it up in the air and.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different game, really, isn't it?
There is an element of it, yeah. So if you take, Sunningdale's longer, but something like Roehampton 6,000 yards, it's other than the par fives.
Yeah.
Winter time, but you'd be hitting a 5-iron into the second maybe in winter.
Yeah, exactly. But you can get into all the par
many
fives.
more than that.
Yeah.
So there are factors that are, it's what becomes more and less important.
Yeah. And also, even at something like the only time I'm really struggling is the sort of, it's almost more like the kind of third on the fourth rather on the new. Where they've taken out the tree, and I always find that one.
Oh, which one?
The one coming back up the hill.
Which trees come out there?
So the tree that if you're a drawer, which I always was, is like right on your line, and you have to sort of send it, and then you're forced reverse into the slight dog leg. That big tree's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's completely opened it up.
Right.
But that's the sort of one hole that I sort of particularly mentally feel like I end up really having to smash it. But it's a drive and a 3-wood. It's not I'm not into these.
Right. Yeah.
So it's almost at the very top end. That
But to answer the original question, they are typically a softer construction. So feedback-wise, they probably do feel better in calories.
Lovely swing. It is this shaft.
it is. Yeah.
That's the first one that we went to. Okay, so the one thing, the Cobra head, and this is a beautifully made head, really nice blade head, softer feel. The weight sits a little lower, it's launching it higher. So it's just popping that flight back up a little bit more. So even previous one that's hit really well, it's up at 19.5 launch, we were a degree less.
That was which head?
That's the Cobra.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So it's a really nicely made head if we're trying to keep a bit of launch on.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd use it as a counterpoint just to see, but that one, the weight sits, there's more of a focus on the bottom half of the head.
Yeah, and that was the Titleist, was it?
Spreads higher up.
Yeah, okay.
I'll just
so you can sort of get under it more, basically.
Just kind of see the Cobra head. That's, okay, yeah. But that then also, the lower that's, it just gets under the ball, pops it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it just peaks that launch and spin, so we'd have to force the loft down to get the flight down, and that then creates gapping issues.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
let me put that. So it's very, very traditional heads. I'll put the Titleist back on. This is where at the upper end of the set you'd then be looking at, with the Titleist head, probably something like the T100.
Yes, you do blend into
just
it.
Just to go into something that gives a...
Where would you naturally make the break?
For you, I'd be looking at either 7 to 6 or 6 to 5.
Okay, that high.
I think 6-iron really, it's a conflict. It's at what point, if you get a slightly scruffy line in the semi-rough, do you feel like a bit more forgiveness mentally just gives you a bit more relaxation?
Yeah.
If you were undecided, I'd say we'll go at the 6 because that's safer.
Yeah.
But you strike a 6-iron well enough for it not to be me telling you but I strongly recommend doing it. I think it's a little bit.
Yeah. It's a 6 or 5.
Your ball striking is certainly good enough to play 6. It's whether you'd feel more comfortable with 6 being in the other head style, and we'll cross-reference the two that if you were to blend, which ones would go to. Yeah, so straight away, launch angle.
So nice.
Back down with an 18 instead of a 19. It's a degree lower launch, and it's the same loft.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's instant. And this was lower than, so this is the Titleist skin, isn't it? So this was lower than the Mizuno.
It'll be interesting to go back to the Mizuno, almost as a sort of a fresh look again after this. Fraction deep on it.
Bit steered.
Commercial.
Good miss though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
The good bad one, as they say. Got away with it.
Oh, that was my timing. It's terrible.
Just thinking about it, I'll show it in a moment. I'll switch it over just to see, because we saw with the Titleist that flight come down straight away. Break everything. Essentially, neither of these has any tech in them at all.
Yeah.
It's just a solid lump of metal with a classic blade shape, and there's very, very marginal sole shape differences where they've, if I catch the light, we'll see a bit of an angle on the front edge.
Yeah.
Whereas that's rolled slightly more.
Yeah.
Both designed just to mitigate when it's softer.
Yeah,
Again, you're not steep enough for that to be a.
But you're thinking if you dip them in the cavities, you wouldn't see a massive difference anyway.
It'll be interesting to see. If we don't really see anything between them, I'll get the other model that we're switching to in the upper half.
Yeah.
The only other bit that, I'm about to put that in there. The only other bit potentially is there is going to be a changeover on the Mizuno heads in the new year.
Yeah, I knew that actually. Yeah.
So, now certainly the blade head, blade. That's not gonna make any tangible difference.
Yeah. I guess it's a question.
But I don't know what the one would blend into the longer irons of the 223.
Yeah. So I obviously I knew that, and I did sense check it, call up last week, and I don't know quite who I spoke to, but
I mean, it's unlikely to be a major change because that's not what Mizuno do.
No, so you'll end up with that club. Question is, do I sort of log this and then hang on for 3 months for the sake of it and get the brand new one?
Yeah.
Which probably
it's likely to be a small progression on these because the 221's a blade, the whatever, even though I know it was rumoured to be called, whatever the next one's called, it's still going to be a similar blade. The 223 has got a little bit of face tech and a slight sort of progression on the weighting.
Yeah.
The carrier from that one's going to be a marginal progression on that. They're not going to suddenly
they're all
reinvent
progressions.
the wheel.
You very much see
very
them
slight
as,
progression.
Yeah.
It's not because they don't. It's been very successful. They don't need to change it much.
Yeah.
It's already, so the Mizuno head's already got a Mirage face, which creates a little bit of speed. It's got a little bit of perimeter weighting. It's an MP series, a players series. They don't need to suddenly transform it. It works.
Because they've got a lot of people relying on it. Yeah.
It's every other year.
Yeah.
As with Titleist, there's a 2-year cycle.
Yeah.
They'll bring out a new club. As long as it's not worse.
Yeah.
Which it won't be.
Yeah. But in your mind, it is a slight improvement, probably. Or is that pretty marginal?
I mean,
it's just newer. Yeah.
That much.
Yeah, fractions.
Because I just don't see, there's nothing radical that they're going to do with that model.
Yeah. Okay. Ah, terrible swing.
It's almost an element where the step change was made with the 223 series from previous models. That was the first one where they introduced the face tech into that head rather than just the hollow body HMB or 225.
The 223, is that the blade looking bigger one?
That's the 225.
225, yeah.
That's
223 is the more cavity-ish one.
It looks
aesthetically,
a little bit more of a cavity.
I always thought it was a funny gap because don't they blend the 221 and 223? And yet the 221 and 225 look very similar.
Look more similar because it's because when they go hollow body, they could just have a plain back. So visually,
allows
you might
that,
think it goes to that one, but actually, for you, the one I would blend with would be the 223.
Yeah.
think.
That was better.
It's marginal and not enough to be something that you really see.
Yeah.
That's marginally higher launch.
Than the Titleist.
Marginally.
Yeah.
But you're looking at half a degree
in
the same
the sort of modern, I know the Mizuno always had the sort of Japanese forged thing. Are they? Is that sort of gone? Are they like?
Oh, they are still Japanese forged, and there aren't that many that are.
Yeah.
So that still does hold some value to it, in that from a tolerance point of view.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that the others aren't good.
Yeah.
It's just that they are still a Japanese-made and proudly Japanese-made product.
Yeah.
Some bits of there are the JPX range. Other bits will go to Taiwan to be made, but the core factory from Mizuno is still in Japan.
Where do these come from?
The actual foundry, I'd have to double check, because they've had some in the past. They have had some series that have been done in conjunction with Endo. That are one of the other bigger Japanese, that's the biggest forging house worldwide. Most of them are now Taiwan based.
Yeah.
Now, with very good machinery rather than the tin pot stuff that when they were sort of not Japanese made, and whether it was China or Taiwan in the past, they were low grade, whereas actually now the actual factory is still very, very good. It's just cheaper to make them in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So that's where, without them saying exactly, that's where I'd expect them to be.
So the minute is a sort of Mizuno loyalty versus a marginal.
It's very marginal. We take that strike versus representative with the Titleist, which was that one, 18.4 and 5.6, 3-degree angle attack, slightly steeper, 18.9, 5.6, same spin, fraction higher launch at the Mizuno.
Yeah.
But it is. How noticeable something?
What was the carry difference on those? Was it a bit less
1
carry
yard. 1 yard. And 3 feet in height.
Yeah.
So there is a technical difference,
Yeah.
but it's, will you notice it? No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll get the other two heads that would be the blend.
Okay.
Thank you.
So very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, and this is the thing, they're all using the same laws of physics, CAD design programs. They all know what works and why. So it's almost an element of, well, there is a, from a, which obviously that's just a straight blade, but there's, as you say, it's kind of Titleist and Mizuno's versions of the same club.
Yeah.
Because they're very much the same target market.
What do you play?
I have Miura blades 5 to pitch, and then a PXG4i.
So they're the sort of premium.
Yeah, they were the
forged,
kind of lower volume. There have been quite a lot of Miura-made blades on tour over the years.
Yeah, what sort of rebranded
Tigers
or
Tigers
covered
Titleists
up,
were all. We know McElroy.
Do you sell them
Titleists
here?
were. We do have. The problem with the Miura ones for the build we'd be trying to get to is the heads are too heavy.
Yeah.
So their head weights are slightly heavier than ideally we would like.
Yeah.
To be able to do more of them.
So they're rare, are they?
They're rare. They are lower volume than others, but actually in terms of, the shame is that the slightly heavier head weights make it harder to hit enough people's specs to sell more of. And they're dearer because they're lower volume.
Yeah.
But they are very nice.
Yeah. So do you fit yourself, or do you have to be fitted
in
by
the main,
someone
I
else?
do get. I do ask for another pair of eyes as a kind of a temperature check, just to make sure, because as much I can feel most of the things that are reloading that are going on, but I do like someone else to see it, just to make sure I'm not kidding myself.
It's a little bit loose.
I don't need a little time. Kidding myself that something's working because I want it to.
Really want to.
But I can generally feel when something just genuinely is a simple move through the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very forgiving head. These guys make the original sort of perimeter weight dial really sort of followed suit.
So there's a little bit of a higher pitched note off the face where the face gives it a little bit more.
Yeah, felt nice though. Yeah, it's a little bit of a clink, isn't it?
Yeah. Just where that different material is in the face. Interesting enough, it's a slightly higher flight, which is where I'd sort of look at that and go, well, maybe just the 4 and the 5 if you were to go down this route.
Yeah.
So we don't have to again force the lofts down with sort of distance gaps, but it should certainly feel a bit more forgiving.
Yeah, it does.
But shouldn't be a harsh feel, but just as you said, there's that slightly different sensation off the face.
Yeah, it definitely feels nice. Yeah, very consistent. Based on where the flight is, I would probably look at this for the 4 and the 5 if you're in the Mizunos, but stay in the blade in the 6. Yeah.
Because it's just kicked it up a little bit more.
So dyslexia kicks in. Do you call 4 and 5 higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower, as in lower number. So, and then
or
would you
longer irons?
Longer irons, yeah. So lower down the back. So would you then? I guess we'll get into that. But whether we then try and sort of bend into like a sort of equivalent of a 3.5 rather than a.
Yeah, I think looking at where chances of where that is. I mean, distance-wise on the hybrid, where would you play that for?
I'm really intrigued to hit one, but I would say about 215, 220.
Yeah, so I think where the lofts need to be for you anyway, actually work over the forearm would be that's a 21, 22 degree anyway.
So would you want about 200 yards on it?
I think yes, actually, yeah.
See, I think
200, 205.
Yeah, that's what I love, and I don't think I can get that out of mine currently. Okay. I think I'm near a 195.
Okay.
And that's why I feel there's a bit of a gap. So on those some of the longer par threes, or trying to get into the greens. I feel a bit under. Yeah,
I would for where your swing is at, then yes, I would be expecting a 4 iron comfortably 200 yards. Comfortably. Okay, good ball speed.
That felt really nice.
Okay. Interesting.
That particular one there is face to patch, so your face is open.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of similar in that I think you get a little. I think at the Titleist you get a slightly better contact.
Yeah.
Out of both the blade and that.
Yeah.
From a trajectory point of view, this is what I would be saying the same thing with the Titleist as the Mizunos. I think that head retains a bit of flight, which is good in the longer couple.
Yeah.
6 iron, it's verging on being a little bit on the higher side. It's launching about a half a degree higher, being 100 revs higher than the blade.
Yeah.
So, and for how you strike the ball, as long as you were comfortable with it, I would probably look at, I think the blade's going to control the flight a little bit better in the 6 iron for you.
Yeah.
And then when you're getting into 5 iron 4 and you're then moving into kind of 190, 200, that's then a distance club. That's when that then gives you that little bit more about how you strike a ball. I certainly wouldn't be trying to steer you away from a 6 iron blade, but I think you get a better flight out of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you wanted to move into one of those in the 6, then it would just mean a little bit of manipulation on the loft.
Yeah.
Just to make and the loft gaps, just to make the distances and the flights work.
So your gut feel would be that
I'd go blade down to 6.
Blade
so
6.
I think you flight it better.
Yeah. Okay.
And saying in terms of like those couple look at strike point, well, did it really miss the first one? Look at it on the Mizuno as well. They're pretty well centered, so it's not like I'm not worried about strike with any of those. There's a couple that got into the heel, but
that's going to be that's off on any club, isn't it?
It's going to drop a bit anyway. So, but I do think you've got a slightly better flight, yeah, so we go to the Mizunos.
I mean, my
higher
flight is my bigger frustration than how it feels off the club head when I'm playing. I'm just sometimes I just hit these balls and it's like, fucking hell. Especially when you get them into the wind and they go nowhere, and it's much more damaging.
Yeah, and so I think the Titleists are just flighting the ball just that little bit better.
Yeah,
just that little bit.
So you think Titleist over Mizuno? Yeah.
From a
that's where you're
numbers point of view,
yes.
If the heart said Mizuno that much more, then we just got to do a little bit more of the lofts to get the flight down there.
No, I like these Titleists.
The Titleists naturally get it there.
I know. I've been looking at them. I think I'm ready for the big jump.
Yeah.
It's an emotional departure. Feels like one of my kids has left home.
Check what's the other. I'm going to do one other check with us. Check the lie with that as well. Just once we've got that, let's just see where that lie sits in. It is a bit interesting as we've gone through the heads, going back with this shaft. You can see how you can just free that up a little bit more. I think, the swing line dispersion just is again that little bit tighter back with that shaft. Those ones those last few that are freed up, they're all down the same. Those are the three with the Mizuno head. And the last couple with that one, they're just down the same track. It's a very tight bunching in terms of shot pattern. When we're switching the heads, and you're not necessarily focused on how you're swinging, you're just seeing how the heads feel. Yeah. It's actually a freed up natural, which is like the first batch we went to, in that they were down the same. If I go into those, and that one, if I go back, and we're down the same track. Yeah. So,
do you have interest? Do you like that shape from what you can see of my swing?
Because your path is a little bit out to in, yes. Yeah. So you'll generally sit 2 or 3 degrees out to in. So, I mean, that in terms of shot shape it sounds a lot. 7 or 8 yards sounds, that's the 2 bays width. Yeah. That's really not a lot. Yeah. And then the.
Do you think you'll stick with that rather than trying to get back to a draw? So I've literally disappeared about 8 months ago, and I've drawn all my life. But it feels quite sort of controlled.
You could argue it's more controlled, and that may where there's a little bit more launch angle coming into it. Yeah. I think from a swing line numbers, I'd want to see the path more like 2 than 4 or 5. Yeah. That also then gives the ability to move it a little bit each way as well. Yeah. If you're wanting to flatten it off, then playing a slight draw, flatten it off a little bit too. Yeah. So from what I've seen today, the slight fade looks quite a natural move. Yeah. But in the main, with each of these, you're generally like that one's 1.81. You're not moving it that far offline. So the average shot shape there is, say, 10 yards sounds a lot. It's not that. It's really not a lot in terms of almost it's a third of a green.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be looking to do anything with it. Yeah. But because your actions, it's not you're throwing it over the top. You could, if you wanted to manoeuvre it back a little square and start to feel slightly more of a draw swing and see it coming in that way, then you could work it that way if you wanted to. But looking at the way you swing it, I would probably say that's a very safe way of playing. It looks quite a natural way of playing. Yeah. So I wouldn't be saying, oh, you need to. Yeah.
But then I think just sort of drop it in here.
Yes, I mean, for you, your shaping is more to do with path. So there's some players that it's face control, and others it's path. The more you move it left, the more you fade it. Yeah. When you play the draw swing, you go back to like 0.8, you go like half a degree into out, and it doesn't move an awful lot. Yeah. So it's more where you get your club path going dictates shape rather than how much you work the face off square. Driver. Yeah.
But they seem to be syncing up at least. So that
I think ultimately it's going to give you the control to do it if you want to, and then you might find that squares off a little bit more over time. They say, for what I've seen today, the fade looks the natural move, but so things that just swing migrates a bit over time. But either it's pretty neutral. It's not far enough to really have to change too much with it. Yeah. But it can be if you're used to seeing. I've played a draw my whole life, so I still see things coming in off the right. Yeah. Even though now I'm not shaping it very much at all. Yeah. I still struggle to aim at a peel on the left. Yeah. So it's a hard one to answer that, but but for where your swing is today, yes, slight fade.
Okay, brilliant. We're out of time, aren't we?
No, we're okay. If I have a hit of that one, that'll give me the lie.
What time's it finish? 3:30, is it?
Yeah. We got plenty of time.
Okay. Because also, are we going to do wedges?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'll just make sure that line's square up. It's got a little chalk line on this just to measure the lie, so it leaves a mark on the face rather than using the lie board.
Okay, that's quite nasty, isn't it?
So it means not having to back off this bit of plastic underneath.
That wasn't the best. That was awful. I felt exactly right there as well.
Yeah, we go one more.
Let's
Let's square up the face. But, so we're looking for that line to be vertical on the face.
Yeah, okay. It's quite clever, that chalk pen, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't mark the screen either.
Oh yeah, how big, yeah. Brilliant. That was good.
Contact. Yeah, so absolutely ramrod up the face for that. So that's spot on. So again, like that one, you've got shot shape, 7 foot. So that's just in a case of migrating, probably whether it's a little bit of aim, whether it's a little bit of swing line. Yeah. But yeah, that's ending up all of about 15 foot left of target. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Actually, very, very neutral lie.
I would take that.
So
I could have it on dar.
Within a half a degree of where you, so it's very kind of, actually standard lies become more upright.
Right.
It's within a half a degree of where your current ones are.
Yeah.
But very neutral standard lie angle on that. So, but then it's a neutral orthodox move, so not a massive surprise. Pro V1 is also definitely the right ball.
Is it?
From a trajectory point
really
of view.
Good to know. Okay. I find the Pro V1 Pro VX baffling.
Pro VX used to be the lower spin one about 5 years ago.
Now it's higher spin. It's switched. Yeah. Okay.
So the Pro V1 launches a bit lower and spins a little bit less.
Perfect. Okay.
So it's definitely the right one.
Cool for me. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
But I say I would, from a trajectory point of view and ball striking thing, I would be saying I think the blade in the 6 is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And helps to control the launch a bit more, but then moves to the T100 and the 4 and 5.
They slightly marginally matter, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit more chromed. Those are slightly more kind of satin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Brilliant.
Actually,
let's go for it.
They slightly neater top line. Yeah, very slightly neater top line. They're just a little bit cleaner, and actually they've made a point of blending visually.
I did notice
very well.
Yeah.
So something they've done very well with that. So that would then leave. We'll be looking at. I mean, again, this is where we go on the lofts, and this is where what we do at the bottom end might dictate kind of how we get there on the top end. You've certainly got space if you're playing a driver 3-wood hybrid, and then into the 4, which the 4 really expect to be kind of 200 plus.
Yeah.
And if basically you get the loft and the flight in the right place, it'll be 200 plus. You've got space for the 3 wedges at the bottom, should you want to play them.
Yeah.
With someone who hits it as you do, you can make the argument, especially with Heather and things around Sunningdale, Roehampton being short, having the having a little bit more armoury close to the green. You can certainly find a reason to play the extra wedge. Yeah. Because it gives you more shot types. You've got more versatility from a bounce point of view. Yeah. Because you can play a heavier bounce on the sand wedge, the middle wedge, and a bit of a tighter one on the.
And I've always liked this setup. So
I'm really looking at it. The bit that's off, that's the right word, is the gap between pitch to 52. That bigger gap is where I would see any issues being. It might be a case of instead of 52, 56, 60, 60.5, that it's 50, 55.
Yeah.
And that's where again you might move them a degree here or there just to hit the distances that you want to, but the kind of the nuts and bolts from a soul shape point of view as well, that makes sense as well. Yeah. There's a lot that makes sense around those.
Okay. So that's what I've always had, and I've had no real complaints to these. So 56 is my bunk,
Yeah. And would you tend to play the majority of shots with one, or
I
do you
use my
spread
52
across?
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Love it. Sort of, and I'm more happy varying the distance on this than any other club. So I hit 50s, 60, 70, 80 yards, all with this.
Okay.
I do a lot, half and 3/4 swings.
So what's quite interesting is the 56 is the heaviest of the three. So the 52 is more in line with the balance that we're looking at for the rest of them.
And it's very much an iron.
It's not light, but it's D3.6. You go up to D6 with the 56, which is quite heavy.
Yeah, and I only really use that in bunkers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's my sort of sand.
So it'd be interesting to see a couple of shots with the 52, just to see how that one moves. So we'd often go a bit heavier on wedges, not always, but we'd often go a little bit heavier on wedge shots than wedge shafts than we would for full swing, because it's a shorter shot. There's less acceleration to it. I'll just go off the front now with these, just pitch a flight so it doesn't come back and hit you.
Yeah, the idea of a bit more weight feels nice, so you can't also takes out the risk of it.
Yeah, maybe. And also it also for the shorter shots, it's dropping it down to the back of the ball. So for the fuller swings, you're making more acceleration. You want the club to come with you. Yeah. On these ones, there's less of that rotation, so the club you haven't got to fetch it quite so much. So actually, you can use the weight to drop it into the back of the ball a little bit more. Yeah,
makes sense.
A couple of fairly kind of standards, then actually a couple of little knockdowns as well to 3/4. Would you ever play when it comes to full shots with these, or are you generally playing knockdown?
52 I do.
Yeah.
I'm not very keen. So I'm not very keen on playing the full 56 and 60.
Yeah. Okay.
So rarely do that. I prefer to, if it's 60, 70 yards, I'll normally knock down my 52.
Got it.
And go down the shaft. And I use this a lot.
Okay.
And around the green, same around the green as well. And also slightly because I practice it in that Roehampton little range.
So dialed in the 75-yard wedge shot. I used to find the problem was that it never held the green. The green was a different construction, so it used to just cannon through the back.
Yeah, it's all right. No, it's pretty good now actually. But the ending is it's just quite. It faces you, so it's quite friendly.
Yeah.
So you can stop everything, and then you sort of I can't on the course.
Okay. Yeah, I think certainly the fact that, so if I give you your 56, that should now be noticeably heavier in the head.
Yeah, it's intriguing.
So it should feel like it's a little bit later through the, yes, interesting that that's just gone right straight away on you.
Yeah.
Because it gets that little, it's almost like gripping at the top of it, it gets lagged in behind and then you're having to play catch up through this. So the more energy you put into the swing, the more out of sync that's going to get.
And is that because it's got more bounce on it?
No, it's just, well, head weights have, over the last few models, not the SM6s, certainly in the SM8s and SM9s, the 54, 56 and up have got noticeably heavier, where they're trying to use wider soles, a little bit more weight at the top to try and keep launch down. Yeah. But that is proportionally quite a big jump for where that one is.
Yeah,
so it's on the upper end weight-wise of where they would ordinarily be.
Yeah, never knew that.
Yeah, so that one, where the irons are a little bit clean strike-wise, that's likely to have that little bit of a catapult over.
Yeah.
Or a bit heavy.
It's really funny. So, not knowing that, I love this out of the bunker. I've never been very comfortable using for anything else. I rarely do.
So where you can kind of thump it into the sand.
Yeah, I like that, and it's sort of probably just the weight. It's sort of it's always been quite nice.
And you haven't got to be exact on contact.
But I'll tend to go for the 52 or the 60, and the 60 is just scrambling.
Okay.
And everything else I'll do with the 52.
Okay, I'll get one that's a little bit. I'm going to bring the shaft weight down a bit and see what that does. But certainly, makes sense from a timing point of view. So the stock wedge shaft is 132 rams.
Yeah.
Dynamic odds. They've been around a long time. It's a very safe. It's a very safe shaft.
Yeah.
It's also cheap.
Yeah.
But heavier weight control. That's always been the principle for wedge shafts.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if I can bring it down to 125. Your iron shafts are 113, 14.
Yeah.
So still 10 odd grams heavier, whether that just makes it a little bit
smooths it out
easier control-wise.
Yeah.
That one's a 54, but it's the same bounce as your current one. Okay. Yeah, I think slightly better shaft weight.
Yeah, it's a bit cussy,
again, just looks like the handle's coming just with you a little bit more, so it's letting you just not have to fetch the head at all. And it's probably, this one's maybe just a fraction heavier on swing weight, maybe a point. I'll get another head once we've seen one more with this, just to bring that down a touch. Yeah, it's a slightly cleaner contact, so it lets you get that ball first strike.
Feels
rather
nice.
than it getting a little bit slightly behind and then just dumping it out into the ground.
Yeah.
That's now coming here to then pinch the ball a little bit more. I'll get a head that I can get a fraction lighter. It's just very slightly heavy. Good spin as well on that. But again, in terms of that consistency of shot type there, down, very, very similar shot pattern, not having to do anything with the club face.
Yeah.
That starts to bring in being able to play a 70, 80 yard shot with the 56, or up to 100 if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Rather than having to rein it back.
Yeah, so that's what you would expect, isn't it? You used to be playing in with all the way up your club range.
Comfortably be to 85, 90 with a 56 or 85, 90. Certainly, maybe 95, 100 if you want to play a full shot with it. But I'd want you to have the option of the knockdown shot or the full shot and have a bit of overlap.
Yeah, exactly.
So the heavy spinning one, if you're trying to bring it back to a pin tucked tight to a bunker,
yeah,
or if you're playing to like the fourth on the old course, the last thing you want to spin, so you're trying to pare it down and take a bit of spin off.
Yeah.
At the moment, you've only got the spin off option.
Yeah.
Which just means you can't attack the pin quite as much as we want you to.
Yeah.
Okay, just lets me get the balance just a touch lighter. And that's probably the one thing that you can get them there with the Vokeys, but we'd have to do a bit of grinding. Their head weights are a little...
So what are these ones?
On the heavier side. This one's tailor-made, but it's one that I can get the balance just where I want to. So this should... Well, it'll be interesting to see whether it squares the face up or whether it means you lose the feel for it or not. But
okay, using them a little bit, aren't I?
It's not making you square it up more. It might look a bit easier to hit a full shot with, but outside of that, it's not really doing it.
Yeah.
Actually, that head's actually launching higher than the other one. So actually, from a face point of view, that one's not getting quite as much grip and pulling the launch angle down. So that face, the Vokey face, is getting a better contact.
So sort of more balloony but less spinny.
Spin's pretty similar.
Yeah, but just a bit more balloony flight.
But the launch is a degree, 3/4 degree higher.
Yeah, and I really want my wedges. I really want to get more
it coming in lower. Now, some of that's going to be, again, the more you start to trust and squeeze it a bit more rather than having to fetch and flip. So you're only 2 degrees down, whereas kind of 5 or 6, but once you get the contact there and you're not going to have to kind of fetch the head and dump it out early, then you can turn and cover it a bit more.
Yeah, so actually it's going to
start to bring the angle of attack down to bring the launch down, which then means lower launch and more spin.
Yeah.
But if the head can help to spin.
So thinking there that the Vokey would encourage...
Well, that face was getting a better launch angle than this one.
Yeah.
I'll get you another one.
It was amazing. The I don't know if you saw, but Fleetwood and Rose went round Sunnydale.
Oh yeah, there was like a
little show thing. Yeah.
So I went to the Nicholas player one.
Right.
In 2002, was it?
Okay.
2003? Yeah, 2003, but yeah.
Because Rose just got in, and then obviously he sort of, I guess it was attached to his sort of membership, I think, or something like that. Anyway, they played it, and apparently I got a text from a friend, McElroy and Lowry played it on Friday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And
I'd love to have seen that.
Because they had Justin Thomas Fowler and Spieth played it before.
Yeah, so they all came in for the Queenwood Cup apparently.
Ah, that was it.
Yeah. And then so then Fleetwood and Rose the next day. And they're amazing. But anyway, so I went out and watched Fleetwood and Rose, because you rarely get that close to them when they're playing shots on the course.
Yeah.
And we were standing like this distance away. Yeah. And the impact of their wedges. So I saw them play if I give my holes, you go over the big par 5 right up on the top, then you've got the little dog leg on the new course, the little dog leg, right up on the top of this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 7, the little dog leg. So they hit a sort of must be like 100 yards in. And God, they hit it. I mean, it's just incredible.
And
how
it comes
hard.
out low as well.
Yeah, it really sort of smashed it. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, they put a lot of speed in because that helps get the spin.
Yeah.
So soft hands, but high speed.
Yeah, it was real.
Because I always think watching them play 40-yard shots, it's amazing how much pace on the shot there is.
And almost where they're sort of so much different to the sort of amateurs.
Oh, massively,
At that end, weirdly.
Yeah.
Well, no, the whole way through, that's not true.
Yeah.
That was a bit skinny.
Okay.
Straighter though.
Thin for, well, okay, half a groove low is good for low launch and lots of spin. Interesting.
That threw my swing a bit, that one.
A little bit low, okay. So you can say the first couple were...
What different shape.
Interesting, that's turning over a little. Let me put that Vokey back on, because the first couple were interesting from a launch angle point of view, but then we're starting to go left.
Yeah.
Let me put the Vokey back on.
Is that quite a peculiar?
So that was the one that's a little bit clean, so low, down near 30 and then 10,000 spin, but then that one was less spin and lower and a bit drawn. So let me put the Vokey back on. So I think that was just a better balance overall of flight. I remember with them, that Nicklaus player match, it was literally, I think, player shots like 72.
Yeah.
And with Nicklaus, again, like we say, there were no ropes you could get, close up to. It was brilliant. And it was the easiest 67 I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
You just come off the course going, well, golf's easy, isn't it? You just play it in the middle of the green, fade it to a right pin and draw it to a left pin.
Yeah.
Literally, he didn't
faultless
break a shot. He didn't miss a shot.
And obviously never missed a fairway.
And it was just, well...
Hitting it a long way still?
So he'd have been...
70?
Mid-60s.
Mid-60s, yeah.
Then so, certainly long enough. It wasn't that struck me, it was just the fact that like every shot just had so little movement on it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the one thing I've been trying to get.
It was just middle of the green, or middle of the green tending towards the pin.
Yeah.
And it never looked like missing.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it's stress-free, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that must be, golf must be so fun playing like that.
Yeah.
Okay, a little bit more right, but a bit more.
That felt nicer.
Sounded a nice contact.
Yeah, a little bit cussy.
The spin and launch consistency is tighter with this.
Yeah.
Yes, it could be a bit lower, but angle of attack's 3 degrees down. Just knock one down.
Yeah,
bring the flight down.
I'm not particularly good at that, which is something I need to work on, but I'll try it.
Okay, pull it down a little bit. Yeah, same sort of spin, brought down. Okay, angle of attack. It moved it the right kind of way, but again, the spin consistency is really tight.
Yeah.
So
I need to get that angle of attack a lot lower.
That's going to be but that'll be something that the more confident you get with it, the better strike you get, the more you'll cover and squeeze. Okay, wintertime squeezing it's just going to be fat.
Doesn't really work, yeah.
But equally speaking, it's a very, very repeating. Take those in terms of that spin level.
Yeah.
Those two in particular are really, really nice.
Yeah.
You've got 40 revs difference there. That was slightly higher launch, so it didn't grip the face quite as much.
Yeah.
And this is the irony of actually the more on top of it you get, you're using the face more, you get more grip, you get more spin.
Yeah.
So actually launching it lower will result in a bit more spin if it's done through angle of attack.
Yeah. Okay.
But the consistency is really the key thing for me there. And it didn't have that left in it. Strange enough that the Cleveland had that bit of left in it. So
cool.
We can have a look at the bounce. That's the final bit on this. Where's that board? Am I going blind? No. That's right, yeah.
Where is it?
Just assumed it'd be in one of the other bays. So this is really looking at front to back where that strike point. Now certainly what you've got at the moment with the S grind on the sand wedge and the M on the lob makes a lot of sense.
Would you stick with that sort of approach to it?
In principle, yes, because the S grind has a bit more bounce later on the sole, so that then means you can open it up a bit and give yourself loads of bounce.
Yeah.
And then the M being a little bit tighter, you can square off and play basically the same loft, but have two very different sole shapes.
Yeah. So it's quite a nice workable setup.
Tight turf. You can square it off and have it sit really tight, and then softer bunkers you can really crank open the 56 and give yourself loads of bounce. Yeah. Equally speaking, in winter time you might use the 56 open off wet clayey turf. Yeah. But wet bunkers you use the 60 squared off. Yeah. So it gives. It was interesting speaking to one of the head guys at Vokey a couple of weeks back, and they're saying that's exactly how they do it for the pros as well. You need a versatility for different lies, different sole shapes to suit different turf conditions. You've got 4 options, rather than just the same sole shape and just loft. Yeah, that makes sense. So just that kind of same swing you'd be making there would be perfect. Okay, yeah, so it's slightly towards the back half, but there's a nice width there. So what we're looking for is, okay, ideally move that forward a little bit, but that'll come through getting a little bit more angle of attack. Yeah. But there's a width to it. It's not just a hard little line on the back edge. You've got kind of almost a third of the sole width being used. Yeah. That way you can regulate divot depth because you've got lots of the sole to use rather than just one point that's going to catch and kick it. I'll give it one more just because off there it's not.
And also I am, I definitely over the winter I'm going to more than anything else work on my angle of attack across everything, so I hope I'll bring that in.
So got on top of that a little bit more. Exactly the same spot, so we can see using the same amount of sole, and it's, if it were just a hard mark on the back edge and a narrow one, I'd be concerned, but especially if you're working on, going to work on getting a little bit more steepness on it, a little more shaft lean onto it, that will drag that forward a little bit. So that actually gives us a bit of room for developing that.
And so that's a 54?
Yeah, and is that, but it's exactly the same sole shape.
Yeah, and that's now replacing my 56?
Well, and this is where you can go either way. If we're looking at hitting that middle ground, if we're trying to add bounce, you'd use the 54 and bend it back. Yeah. We're looking, which we would be to tighten up, because it's only going a degree either way. If we're looking just to tighten it up a fraction, which would suit a bit more, use the 56 and bend it forward. But it's exactly the same base sole shape. This grind.
And then with a 50 or 52?
This one would be, well, if we're keeping that 3-wedge system, this is for the 56. On the 50 or 52, exactly the same sole shape as you've got, that F grind.
And are you thinking that 52 becomes
a 50?
It becomes a 50, okay.
Because we're likely to nudge the lofts just a degree or so on these, but we need to narrow that up there. So we need to just push the loft forward.
So I'll go wedge 50, and then
your 50 should be like at the top end should be kind of 110, 115.
Yes, it's not quite the moment.
So that'll be more the really 105 marker. I'll get the higher loft equivalent to that, because I think that's also a suitable shape.
So is that one then a similar amount of bounce to this one, to my current 56.
Yes. Yeah. And Soul Shape works for you. You know, it's definitely sits in a good place.
Yeah.
You know, it's got enough bounce there without having loads.
Yeah.
And then this one will be interesting to see whether, because the one thing with the M grinds, they've got that bit of a harder edge there on the smooth rounding.
Yeah.
And it's whether we need to just manipulate that a little bit. So it's exactly the same, exactly, very nearly. You picked the wrong one. Very nearly exactly the same Soul Shape. That one's actually got a little bit more graduation on the heel, but it's still got quite a peak there. Yeah. Which, if you're in softer conditions, again, gives you a little bit of protection. Yeah. It's whether for UK turfs, where the grass is thinner, sits down a little bit more to the ground, where they're actually just basically taking that peak and smoothing it.
I do love it when it just looks really snug on the ground, and you just feel like you can.
So that's where potentially, I'm interested to do strike point on this, but where like taking the ridge and just blending it in, just lets it sit a little bit neater. Let's see. Yeah, so that sounds a bit of a harder contact, and with that, you can see it's all getting right up to that back edge, to that ridge. So if you were to play, do you ever open the club up and play?
Yeah.
Yes, let's see one of those as well.
Off here.
Yeah, it seems a bit kind of funky off that, but it's a lot softer than it looks. Would you play bunker shots face open?
Yes, always.
Okay. Yeah.
Sort of about like this.
Yeah.
And so with my 60, I mean, I play it open a lot.
Yeah, so that second one, you can see that narrow one, that's right on the peak of the crust. Yeah. So that's where, what we'd look to do from there is take that and just blend that, soften it. So rather than having that ridge catching and giving it a bit of a kick, we're not kind of scalping it and taking loads off, it's just smoothing it off.
But it's
so
going to feel
can then
a bit
skid
more
a
like
little
you
bit
can
and slide through. So it'll let you have it sat a little bit open, but keep that leading edge a little bit tighter. But it's because we're not going to take loads of bounce off, there's still plenty to use in sand when it's softer. But it means it skids through rather than the ridge want to kick it a little bit. And where you're not steep in the first place anyway, your default's still going to be to playing that slightly shallower line through, and we don't want that getting in the way. It's a marginal thing.
Yeah, but it's more like to cause problems than help you.
Exactly, but outside
I really like the idea of that 60 just looking even open, really tight
just
on the grass.
That leading edge will just stay that little bit lower. And that's where actually your base sort of wedge setup bar, we're dropping a little bit of shaft weight, and we're just fine tuning the grind. Yeah, and the loft sounds like a lot, and the lofts, but really it's fine tuned. Yeah, that's why they've worked pretty well. Yeah, but we can mitigate some of that weight and balance on the wedges.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've had no real complaints apart from the fact sometimes the wedge to the 52 felt a little bit big. Yeah, bigger gap. Yeah, bigger gap. So we'll close that.
So it would still be, well, 52 would go to 50. We'd still use 56, but move that down 1 degree to 55. Perfect. And then the 60 just blends the ridge in. Perfect.
Okay. So 56 down or 54?
Because we don't want to, we're not looking to add bounce to it. If anything, we just take it's 1 degree either way, but we don't need to add the extra degree. It's actually not the worst thing in the world just to take the 1 degree off. Yeah. So where we're not grinding it down, we're still keeping that back edge rounding, it's just dropping it a fraction. Okay, and where the contact point's a little more towards the back, it'll just help it move forward a fraction without transforming the shape of the sole. Okay. Do you like the finish? Because they still do brushed steel is the current equivalent of that black nickel or whatever it would have been called.
Yeah, so is it slightly silver?
It's a slightly darker chrome, whereas you've got the Tor chrome, which is that one. Doesn't have to have our name on there. Whereas that just a little bit of a darker finish just frames the ball differently at impact. So that would be the most similar, if you like that visual, the most similar to it. But
it's slightly silver.
It's a slightly darker chrome, So it's got brushed steel. It's sort of the equivalent to the old black nickel finish.
Yeah. I think I probably do prefer that.
They do the black one as well, so they do both raw and they do...
Yeah, no, I'm not keen on, on that.
Black fades off, and they do one the same finish as that rusts up.
Yeah, no, I'll leave that. So which one is it in there? Or have we got it out?
We've got them out, yeah. So the brushed steel is the sort of darker chrome, but is nigh on identical to your current finish.
Yeah.
So, and then where we do a little bit of a grind on the 60, there'll be a slight discolouring where we smooth that off just where, but functionally it'll make it, you'll see it when it's in the bag, you won't see it on the ground. It won't. It's not enough of a grind to really kind of rust up. It's a very, very light one because we're doing just blending it in rather than taking a heavy grind to it.
That's absolutely fine. That wouldn't bother me at all. I think I probably do quite like. I don't know. I just always quite like these. I think I probably do quite like that, and also I'm going to keep practicing with these ones.
Okay. Yeah, so it's sort of visual continuity.
Well, is that a bad idea? Well, I'm more just I don't wear out the groove so much.
I mean, so the bad side to it is the weighting of it. I mean, the problem is the more you practice you do with that, then it's a different weight setup. So the timing of the shots will be a bit different.
Yeah.
So
the 52 is the least different.
Yes.
They're all similar.
Yeah, 52 is the least different.
Okay. Maybe I'll just handle that and not the 56.
So it's the kind of thing I would, if you wanted to have a particular practice club, then I would say, well, have one that you match the shaft in.
Yeah.
Because it will be a different timing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
That would probably be but if you want to have a practice club, then that probably makes the most sense.
Buy an extra one.
Shaft,
shaft.
And then you can just stick it into that,
okay, okay.
Yeah, that would be a
better
way
solution.
of doing it,
Okay, all right, brilliant, how exciting.
One of the things we do, we'll look at grip type, one of the things we do with the shafts is a process we use called puring. So essentially, where we do everything build next door, it's a bit like balancing a car wheel. So graphites have loads of different sort of layers of materials and resins, and whereas steel, it's the straightness of it. So essentially what it means is that that logo can come out anywhere. Yeah. Now we can get it off. It's just
is that my shaft in the end?
Yes.
That red one,
so essentially what it does is structurally it analyses the shaft once it's cut. It's the machine just in the corner of the workshop.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is finding the most stable orientation of that shaft to go into the head. So every shaft loads and recovers during the swing.
Yeah.
So you're putting the most stable point target. Oh, don't want to lead that.
It's in the best side almost.
So essentially, kind of pure. If you do that, it's nice and stable. If I twist it and try and move it, it moves off. So essentially, with a misaligned shaft, and it's not a critique on the shaft itself. But
that's so weird, isn't it?
It just means that you're taking out any extraneous twisting. So spin consistencies, flight consistency is just a little bit tighter. So hence that balancing the car wheel is the best analogy for it. But it does mean that can come out anywhere.
Okay.
So
can you de-logo these or not?
We can, yeah. Okay. It's a heat gun and some wire wool.
I prefer just to do that. Yeah. Do it and take the logos off them.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Because essentially, really, what it means is you get the performance from the shaft it's designed for, because there's less twisting of the head.
Yeah. It's fascinating how you can feel that.
This is a really good kind of visual because it really starts to work it. And we've had some, less so now, but in the past, some wood shafts that you couldn't actually find the best position for them because they would twist the head off. I mean, there was one absolute stinker of a shaft. That the chap was a county player and he hit hooks with it. You don't really get that now. The tolerances are still tighter, but essentially there are thousands of them made a day. So it just takes dots the I's and crosses the T's.
There's always going to be some deal of grade, isn't there?
So grip type and size is the other bit.
So I think
actually quite a deep palm. Okay. So whereas I have the ignominy of having to wear a cadet glove from a finger length point of view, but you've got a deeper palm. So it's about wingspan diagonally. And particularly in your right hand, you're fairly long between thumb and first joint. So actually you've got a kind of a more in the bottom hand to actually finger to wrap around the grip.
Yeah.
So those are the stands.
And I wear a medium glove.
Okay. So I'll
not normally that glove.
That on just in hands, just to sort of take a grip of it. So so actually if you close that down, there's a reasonable bit of overlap there. So what that means is there's a bit of space in there. So at impact, you might well find that once you've hit, bring the club back and the head's twisted round.
Right.
Because the more gaps there are, the more it moves. So you've got to hold on tighter to stop it twisting.
Okay. So you would expand that slightly?
I would certainly go a little bit bigger. Not a huge amount in the top hand, but I think if you put your right hand on there, yes, you've got to close that down is if you kind of relax that, it's going to kind of hang off the grip. So going a bit bigger in the bottom hand, actually all the way through, will just feel your hands out a bit more. Means they can relax a bit more.
Is that whatever a wrap? Is it? What do you do on
there? I mean, there are some. Tape. Yeah, you can either do it by layering tape. There are some grips, which I'll grab a couple now, that are designed to take that tapering out.
Yeah.
I'll grab a couple of them, and a couple of different sizes as well, just as a base point. So let's just see if I take. So this one's similar in the top hand, but it's thicker in the bottom. Yeah, so that fills that finger out a lot more.
You like the look of that?
So you're not having to. What you're not getting is the white bits on the knuckles, where you're having to pincer it to get control. Yeah. The moment you have to hold that down, then that tightens up, and it kind of goes. That's where some of that hold on can go on.
So logical.
Whereas that's your current one, which will now feel quite small in the bottom hand.
It does. Yeah.
So you've got to close that finger down onto it, which again just creates tension.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see, that's a slightly bigger size altogether. See this in top hand, which actually, in top hand fits well. So little finger's still round past the centre, and that clamps it in.
Yeah. But not.
So we don't necessarily have to de-taper it and reduce the tapering, because that fits well there. It's actually just generally going a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Whereas I can go back to that now.
Yes, touching
there's
there.
all that overlap and dig in there. So there's a lot of tension in the hands.
Yeah.
So stop it moving. So going bigger, as long as I'll get a shaft with that size grip on. Going to that bigger size, a mid-size, it sounds a lot, but actually with your palm depth, it's not a surprise.
And actually, I'm pretty sure I've got a layer of tape under my wedges.
So a mid-size is equivalent to about 6 layers.
Oh, is it? Okay,
so it's actually quite a big difference. I'll put this onto there so you can feel it on a club. That's that mid-size on there. So it should feel like it fills your hands out a lot more.
It really does, yeah.
And that certainly will result in a lot less tension to your hands and arms.
Yeah.
So help kind of just get that freedom through.
Just stabilise it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Brilliant. And also that's something that you can change, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And grip type's a key one, because once you go to this size, some of them get quite heavy. So grip weight's going to be quite critical. There are sort of 3 or 4 that don't. So a lot of them put 10 grams extra in the grip when you go up to the bigger size. Yeah. So for us, it's key not to do that. So that's one of the options, which is very similar to your current ones. Yeah. The other ones that we can go bigger and not add weight are. I can find the other one. Yeah. So there's that, which is a similar. There's a little bit more texture to the grip. That's a very sort of standard basic rubber. Yeah. Is
that more of a winter grip then?
Not really. It's just a marginally different actually paint in there, which gives a bit more. It's a slightly different tread pattern, slightly deeper edge. So there's a bit more grip, or a bit more edge to it. That's the cording's going to be a lot firmer though.
Yeah, I'm not sure the skin is firmer.
And there's that, which is a totally different material. It's slightly tackier.
Yeah, that feels quite nice.
So it's got they did a grip with Michelin years back, so it's got a bit of tread to it. So it gives you some purchase without it being kind of particularly coarse or harsh.
Yeah, I mean, I've always quite liked these.
I mean, those are still a good grip.
Yeah, what would you
but something like that gives a little bit more. So I always used to play the tall velvets, kind of want a bit more traction on it, but like the chords and things just rip my hands up. Yeah. So I play a variant on this because it gives.
And I've always actually felt because those are a bit hard.
Yep. Yeah. So that cording on the top hand is a bit can be a bit brutal. So something like that gives you that traction. Yeah. Without the hardness.
And then presumably these wear quicker. Not massive.
No, because they're not rubber. Yeah. 90% of the time we've seen these wear better. Okay. Whereas the rubber tends to actually kind of not fray, but the friction on that can tend to wear them a little bit faster. Whereas actually this one, I've not seen these wear as quickly. Yeah. They've been out
and fine through the temperatures and rain and.
So when it's any of them in wet, as long as you've got a decent glove on or dry them up, because there's some tread pattern there, that gives us some of the moisture to go rather than sit on that can sit on the surface a little bit. Slightly, so generally pretty good in the wet. When it's warmed up, they get a bit tackier. Yeah, a little bit. But when it's cold, they're not going to be quite as firm. Yeah. So that again keeps that little bit of tread and traction to it.
I think that feels nice. Yeah. I like the idea of the grip, basically. Yeah.
So they do. very slight variance on that.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah.
This is the last thing.
Okay.
One's a visual variant.
It's pretty common fitting that bigger grip, is it? Or is that? It's quite common going up to this sort of size of grip?
More so now than it used to be. I think everyone's getting bigger. But I think now it's just a bit more awareness on why you would. So we'd often build up over standard's quite small. So we'd often build up over standard. Maybe not quite to this size, but actually your palmlet's quite long. So, so whilst you haven't got very long fingers, but actually there's a lot of palm to get around it. So, so they do, literally that is the same grip, but it has a visual on it.
Okay.
Which is whether that would be something you'd want to use as a kind of a visual aid.
Yeah, I think massively.
Whereas that's a little bit cleaner.
I prefer the sort of simpler looking things.
Yeah, they do a wrap style, almost like a kind of a little tennis racket style, which some people feel like they get the crook of the finger into that.
God blimey, the options.
Or
no, I think I probably just
straight.
like. I think I probably just like that one actually.
Final
sort
question.
Of mid-ground, I think.
Would you want that on the top as a reference marker, or you can put it that way around, so it's just you in the club face? Probably blank. Yep.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, definitely blank. Yeah.
Great.
I think so. I think that one.
Perfect.
I think otherwise it's sort of.
That was a little bit busy.
Get into.
That was the original one, and then we've done far more of these since they launched it.
Yeah. Feeling it as opposed to
it's exactly the same grip otherwise, just without the white visual. So essentially, it's grip size up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Shaft weight's down. Shaft weight's down a few grams, 5 or 6 grams, but a bit of natural balance in the bottom half.
Yeah.
The blade and 6 to pitch and the T100 going with the Titleist in the 4 and 5. A degree stronger loft, marginal tweak on loft just to get that trajectory.
Yeah. So it becomes a sort of 3.5 at the top.
Yeah, we can gap the loft so that you can get that. We can make sure that 4 gets the distance. But I think distance I don't see being an issue with where that slight drop in shaft weight and then a head that's just a little bit more efficient from a ball speed point of view.
I'm going to get that anyway.
That's comfortable.
And so, do we need to measure it onto that, or do we?
Certainly. Drive is something that, based on where we are, it's, from what I would see, it's a no-brainer to bring that balance down. We're at D1 and a bit on the irons, which does not translate into D8 in the driver.
No, because my rescue and my 3 I really like.
Yeah. So
and
at the very least, we can get it down so it sits in line with those two. Okay. And at least they all match one another at the top.
Yeah.
The driver is.
So what do I have to do to do that?
It's just shorten it down and regrip it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because at the length it's at, it's comfortable to take half an inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch off to get it down to actually what really we would term as standard length. Okay. And that'll mitigate a load of that balance.
And how do I physically do that?
That's something we can do pretty easily.
When I pick the other ones up?
That's probably easiest. And potentially whether you want to match, it would make sense to match grip size, grip type and size on the woods to the irons. That bigger size will be noticeable. If we don't, it'll feel tiny. Definitely. So that would be something we could do on pick over the other bits, match those grips in and do the length change. And then
you can do all that on, should I book a session for it?
Or? That would be something that we could do. Something like that would be something we could do just
on spec.
At the time I pick it. It's a 20-25 minute job. So.
Brilliant, okay.
Great.
Amazing. So timescales and damage.
So I'll work out that one very shortly. Timescales, we're having to quote up to 6 weeks just because that mitigates any kind of product not coming through. Yeah. We'd hope to do it a little bit quicker than that, but that's the timescale. That's a reliable timescale for it, pending any supply issues. But supply generally has been good, so wouldn't expect it to be any longer than that.
All right, fine. And you'll give us a shout when there's.
Yeah, I'll be 2 or 3 minutes so I can pop the quote together for you now, and then.
Okay, that is brilliant.
From there. But some nice changes there. So it's a good size.
Really exciting. Really exciting.
Really does make sense with what we saw from a setup point of view. So
yeah. Great. That's just fascinating. Yeah. And there's a lot.
It's always nice when there's a reason.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just sort of it feels like you've really come to conclusions.
Great. Lovely.
Okay. So that's all done. Should I put these away then? Yeah,
put those away. I'll pop into the workshop and just put those numbers together for you. I'll literally be 3 minutes and I'll be back out. Help yourself to some Coca-Colas or water or things down the bottom end.
Perfect. Okay.
I'll whack those together. I'll be out very shortly.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks.